Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sunday Brunch. I am your host, RM, and of course, we have with us today Russ Whitfield. Russ, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm pretty tired. I've had a hectic couple of weeks actually. I am not gonna lie. It's been work has been really busy. Writing has been really busy. I've got a bit of a social life going on. I was in North Devon last week, and this week I was in Glastonbury with an amazing martial artist who I would like to give a shout out to when we got some more people in the chat because I'd like everyone to go check her stuff out. And she has pitched me an idea that she would like me to write. And I thought,
Oh,
okay, well, that's interesting. But as part of the weekend, she's also a martial arts instructor,
mhm.
and she has people staying at her giant place in Glastonbury. And one
Wow.
of the people there turned out to be a director,
Oh my God.
which was just the weirdest sort of like conglomeration of things. And this lady's got some funding to do a film about asylum seekers here in the UK. Um, and she was talking about how she gets funding for movies like that via the education fund as opposed to sort of traditional film investment, because then she said, all I've got to do is actually make the movie, and if the movie makes money, brilliant, but it's like I'm not beholden to anybody. So they're training again today, so I'll probably drop her an email and say, look, Cecily pitched me this idea, what do you think? Da, 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 da. I'm also working on that short film I told you about. That's nearly done,
Wow.
I think. What else has been going on? Bloody hell! And I've planned my trip to the States, so I'm leaving England on the 4th of August, which is a
Wow.
Friday.
Wow. That is amazing, Russ. Congratulations on that, putting that through. I know it's so exciting. Russ, you have a lot going on.
I know. I do, and it's been like sort of months of my daughter's now suddenly stopped being a teenager and turned into a young woman. Boom, overnight.
Yes.
Like she was, like great student, all that business. Finished school, didn't decide she's not going to go to university. Puts all her eggs in this basket of getting an internship at Sky Sports, which is our ESPN here. Got the bloody internship, which was awesome. So she starts that in October. Now all of a sudden, now no, she's got the boyfriend. She's going to parties and doing this. This literally happened like overnight. So yeah, I haven't seen. It's gone from seeing Sam like pretty much every other day to sort of, like, I haven't seen her for a week now. But I'm thrilled. Like she's out living her life, because those years of the unspecified virus of unknown origin. Um, it was all right for us lot, I guess, but for teenagers, it was those 2 years that they missed out on that was really important for their social development. So yes, that was my week. How about yours?
Um, not nearly as exciting as yours. I was during the lockdown. Some people, a lot of unfortunate things did happen. You're right about that, Russ. And at my job, we worked twice as hard. Um,
Sorry,
so
hold on a second. Yes, it's England football, uh, cross the St George mug, Darth Plato. Sorry, RM.
that's okay. But what I was saying is, during the lockdown, I know for a lot of people, they had different circumstances with their work situation. For where I work, we had to work twice as hard. So, we were working 24/7. We were on call 24/7. So there was that element of it. But what we're finding, is that a lot of people on my job were affected, their mental health was affected. And signs of that are coming out now. And we have an incredible amount of people on my job who are either having heart issues, mental health issues, or some other health related situation that I guess during either the pandemic or whatever it was, um, they couldn't address them during that time. It was impossible. And now, um, all the stuff is coming out in tremendous amount of numbers, Russ. So there's been this initiative to try and get everybody to focus on their health fairly
Mm.
recently. And I'm one of those people who needs to focus on their health. Like I'm one of them. I'm constantly saying that I'm going to pledge myself to be more healthy, and I don't think I'm abusing my health, but I could be healthier. So I pledge to be part of this whole thing. But
Well,
You
you're
know,
running out of time, Aurum. I mean, we're in July. Topless show on the 25th of December. It's coming. We know it's coming. We've said it online. It's got to be done.
it is
So
coming. It's going to be topless for you, but bikini top for me. So
right, I see. Okay.
yeah.
So everyone's leaving the chat now. They're all disappointed. Oh no, we thought it was going to be like midnight nudies.
No, no, it's not. But yeah, it's been a kind of a eye-opening situation. This is the first normal year, really. In May in New York, our I guess our governor or somebody lifted the whole thing in May, so everything's back to normal. And this is the first July 4th celebration. You know, it's a huge holiday here in the States. As you know, you've been here during July 4th, so you've witnessed a July 4th,
I
Russ.
know, you fucking traitors. What's going on? You should
So
rejoin the Imperium.
and this is the first time in a long time that I've seen the right amount of people outside where I live in a beach community. It's a big deal out here. So over the years, not seeing anybody for so many years because you couldn't go and do the normal things you wanted to do was kind of tough. But now I have to get back into that normal way that we were. So even my mother, who is 86, is like, we need to go out. And I'm like, whoa, mom, you want to go out? She's like, yeah. So I know things are going back to normal because she's saying things like that. But I did just want to mention that. And that's what's really been going on this week. Another person at my job has had to go to the hospital. So they're okay, but it was, definitely neglect on all of our part. From, it's like you can't work extra hours and expect it not to have a repercussion on your health. So that was something else we were looking at. Now, on the bright side, Russ, on the bright side, it
Hmm.
actually has been a fantastic week for me. I feel great. The weather is very humid. I can't complain. This is absolutely no complaints whatsoever. And I'm so happy to be here on this Sunday. Um, this is a great time to be alive. It's a great time to be a fan in the geek community. There's a lot of great things going on, and yeah, I feel pretty good. So
Well, July 4th, right? That's a big American holiday, a huge symbol of Americana. I'll tell you what else is a huge symbol of Americana. My favorite superhero, Superman. Do we
yes,
want to say hello to people in the chat before we launch into the
yes,
news
we
roundup?
do.
You go ahead. You go on ahead. Who's here? Who we got?
Well, I want to say hello to Tom Jr. Jackson, moderator, collaborator, and good friend. Hi, Tom.
The
We are
man, the
all,
legend.
yeah, we are all good people, Tom. So good to see you. And Retro Nerd Girl is here.
Oh, Retro, my resident crush. Hello, lovely.
Retro Nerd Girl says, good morning. Brewing up my first cup of coffee. It's going to be a great day. It is Retro Nerd Girl. I love that. Dark Plato says, yo. Hi, Dark Plato. How are you? Always a pleasure to see you here. Gary Bando Sandwich Worthington is here.
All right, gal.
How are you? Hope you're well, says hello. Mighty Orbots is here, says, watcha.
All right, mate.
Nathan Trujillo is here, says, hey, positive fandom family.
Wow, it's turning into a party today. Sunday
Yeah,
party. What's going on? Must be the 4th of July weekend.
it must be, Nathan. I hope you are well. So great to see you. And Wex Wuther is here.
Hello.
Says, cheers at RM and Russ and everybody. So nice to hear from you. Stubble McShave as well. Hi, Stubble.
All right, Stubble, Skull.
Good to see you too. We also have Mikey Lito is here.
Oh, hey, Mikey.
Mikey Lito says, good morning. Happy Sunday. Happy 4th. Hello to all in the positive fandom community. Good morning, Artem and Russ Whitfield. We also have Chronicles. It says, hey, gang.
Hey, Chronicles.
And who else is here? We also, wow, it's a lot of people. Byford the Hobbit is here. Says, hi, Artem and Tom Hugh Jackson. And Byford, hello to you.
What the hell, man? What am I, chopped liver? What's going on?
Joe Tyson
Big
here.
Joe. Yes. Now we can start the show.
Says Art, hey, mahalo, or whatever that sign means, at Art and Russ. So nice, Joe, to see you here as always. Such
Absolutely.
a pleasure.
Love Joe Tyson.
And Irene is here. Hi, Irene. Says,
Hi, yeah. Irene wrote to me. I have to try and speak to my publisher to get more copies of my books. So I just don't. I thought I had more copies of Gladiatrix. Actually, I've run out of Roma Victrix, so I don't really have anything I can actually send you. But as I say, I think I'm sure you can get them on Amazon for like, $5 or something like that, Irene. But yeah, if I can get some more out of Ed, I will do.
Well, Irene, it's a pleasure to see you. Says, hey, yeah, RM darling. Hello. Hello, Paul. I'm assuming she means you.
It's me. Yeah.
And it's so good to see you, Irene. I hope you're well, and I hope the kitties are well. I hope your family is doing great. So good to see you. We also have it's actually moving on its own now. Just a brown girl is here. Hi, just
Oh,
a
there
brown
she
girl.
is.
How are you? Good to see you. I hope you are well. Great to see you. I hope things are going well with you. Wow, there's a lot of people in today. Russ, there's a lot of people. So let's get started to talk about something that cannot be ignored, and that is the Superman casting, as you mentioned, Russ. Um,
Yeah, in a surprise to literally nobody. However, I remember I was chatting to people on Reddit about this right after the oh my god, the show Peacemaker. After he appeared in Peacemaker, and he posted a selfie of himself as Superman, David Cornswet, and
really,
everyone was sorry.
really, he did.
He did, yeah. He posted a selfie of himself in the Superman costume, and the and Reddit just melted down over this guy. Like, oh my god, he's perfect, he's perfect, he's perfect. Of course, this was, in the sort of wilderness years of not knowing what was happening with Henry Cavill. And yeah, he looks the part. Um, and apparently he's nailed it. So yeah, we have a new Superman and a new Lois Lane. Um, and things are trundling on in the direction of the DCU for now. Um, They always pick someone great though, don't they? I mean, Christopher
Yes,
Reeves was great, Brandon Routh was great, Henry Cavill is the best, and we'll have to see what they do with David Cornswet and Rachel
absolutely.
Brosnahan.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see how it turns out. I'm sure he's going to be great. He looks good. He's attractive. I have to give him
He
that.
just looks like Henry Cavill, doesn't he? I mean,
Yeah, he
literally,
does.
basically, they've just sort of like de-aged Henry Cavill, and a lot of people have said though about this, which I don't take to heart. But he is an American, and there has been a lot of in recent times a lot of casting as Brits as these iconic American superheroes. Christian Bale, Henry Cavill, Tom Holland. These are sort of like banner. What's the not to, Spider-Man, the other Spider-Man. His name's gone out of my mind. Not Tobey Maguire, the other bloke.
It is Tom Holland.
Tom Holland, and the other guy, Andrew Garfield,
Oh yeah,
British.
I'm sorry. I'm wrong. Yeah, you're right. It's Andrew Garfield. Excuse me.
Yeah, so you've got all these Brits doing these jobs, and because they all come from a theatre background, and I'm sure I don't know if that's the case with majority of American actors, but it's certainly the case over here, so they can pull it off. But it's nice to have an American back as Superman. Although, as Gary Banjo Sandwich Worthington points out in the chat, it is kind of Cavill light. I don't know. It's great news. In one way, and in another way, it's not such great news. But I think with Warner Brothers, everything just seems to be up in the air at the moment. RM, I don't know what you think, but I have very little faith that this is actually going to happen. And if it does happen, is it going to be any good? And if it's any good, is it going to make any money? Because people in our sphere of the internet are always like on Disney's case and giving Disney a kick in for destroying top tier brand items like Star Wars and Indiana Jones and whatever else they've put their paw prints on. But Warner Brothers as well. I mean, like the Flash just tanked horribly. I don't know, Aaron. What do you think? I've been doing all the talking.
Well, I don't know what to say. I mean, I think that the Flash was touted, or at least I read in an article where they had said that it was let's say the creators of it had said this was the greatest superhero movie, and I think that if I'm not going to say necessarily that it wasn't an entertaining film. It was entertaining. I found it entertaining, but it didn't make as much money, and people didn't turn out for it the way they did for Spider-Man No Way Home.
Well, you know
And
whose fault that was, don't you?
well, I think if the film was good, people still would have turned out for the film, and they would have done that if it was a great film, regardless of who stars in it. But
Mm. No, I think it's the fault of the tiny minority Snyder fans, because that's what the internet says. It's our fault if the film tanks, because there are millions of us, and it's our fault. But we're also a tiny minority. I know I say it every time, but it really drives me nuts. Like, you go through Reddit, and apparently it's all the Zacharytes' fault that the Flash failed. We made it fail. No, it just wasn't. I think we spoke a couple of weeks ago about the directorial decisions, and I wanted to address this actually. But you carry on. You carry on what you were saying. Sorry, I jumped in there.
no, I was simply saying that I think it was pretty clear that looking at that movie and the changes over the time period, that with a film that had to make that many changes indicates that they may not have been as confident in the storyline as they could have been.
Mm.
So I don't know how long it took them to make Spider-Man No Way Home, but I wouldn't change a single thing in that film. And yet there are things in the Flash that I would consider changing. Um, so that's how I look at it. I think that the story was not as good as they touted it to be, but it was still an entertaining film. And on top of everything else, I think that people may not be as enamored with the Flash as they were, let's say, with Spider-Man. Spider-Man might just be a more popular character. Uh, I'm not entirely sure of that, but I believe he might be. And so that might also lead to why that other film made more. But No Way Home seemed like the ultimate superhero film. And The Flash was not what I would consider the ultimate superhero film. My biggest criticism of The Flash is that they had to retell the same story from uh,
Man of
Superman,
Steel,
Man
yeah.
of Steel. And I have absolutely no problem with them revisiting that notion, but it's the exact same story. I felt like they could have just given Supergirl her original story, and I would have watched it. I didn't have to see the same scenario that had played out before. So I didn't care for that storyline. And as far as I'm concerned, Ezra Miller was fantastic in The Flash. I loved him in this. So I
He was
thought his
brilliant.
performance was spectacular in it. So, he can act in pretty much, any role and do a great job. So I don't think it really has anything to do with him. I think that there were people who mentioned they didn't care for the graphics, and I thought the CGI was fine. So there are a lot of things that I think people could look at and find that they didn't care for. Maybe they'll say, I'm not interested in the film. But I've never seen a film undergo the scrutiny and the analysis that The Flash seems to have undergone. I've never seen a film go through that before. And it was really maybe one of the most, debated and reported about films I've ever seen in my entire life. I've never seen anything like this. And a lot of it was filled with mystery. It wasn't sort of reporting where you would read a report and it would say, well, this is what's going to happen. Most of it was speculative. And I've never seen that. I remember when Batman '89 came out, and there was one of the biggest press campaigns I've ever seen for a movie. And like the majority of it was positive, but it was just, you have to see this film. You have to see this film. And it had definitely a different tone to it in regards to it being one of the most famous superhero movies of all time. It is one of the most famous superhero movies of all time. And there'll never be another film like that coming out. It's just that No Way Home got as close to the popularity of Batman '89 as it possibly could. I feel like it achieved that level of popularity, and that people still watch that movie. And if it was in the theater, I would go and buy a ticket to see No Way Home again.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's our level of, let's say, our modern greatest superhero movie since Endgame and such, yeah, and that was a while ago. If we're talking about the last few years, that would be your the point that you want to reach to, where you want to go with it.
I would say, yeah, I'd say with Endgame, I think history has judged it better than at the time. At the time, it was the culmination of absolutely everything. When you look back at it, actually, Infinity War was the better one, right? That was the better movie, and people have sort of picked apart the bones of Endgame, and like it's okay, and it's a decent enough ending, but it's not the biggest. Whereas, or the sorry, the best. So I would say you were absolutely right with No Way Home, that was kind of the superhero movie that everybody wanted, and it's typical of Marvel, even though it was Sony Marvel. When you compare to DC, the multiverse was always a DC idea. It was a DC thing, but again, because they've got this head start on DC, everything that DC sort of seems to do is always playing catch up with Marvel, and you have this with the Flash, and I wonder how much, because it's really hard to ascertain with general audiences, because we are nerds, right? You know, so we're not the general audience. So I don't know how all of this stuff affects Joe Schmo. Like, does he even know about it? Does he even care about it? Because it seems that the Flash has really suffered from dead end game, if you like, in that a lot of commentators are saying, why would I bother investing 50 $60 or however much it costs to take the you and your missus off to the cinema and a meal afterwards and all that, to go and see a film that you know is absolutely going to take the character nowhere because the character's finished,
Yeah,
so I sorry.
no, that's a good point. And I did just want to, and I do want you to finish your point. Chronicle says superhero fatigue, that and the fact that most of the recent big CGI films are really poor and unimaginative. That's the reason, I think. Yeah, Chronicles, you make a good point. I mean, a lot of people are saying that, and I hear you. Nathan says the bad box office of the Flash shows that DC movies had to be rebooted. Yeah, maybe. Superman Legacy will be the beginning of the rehabilitation. Yes.
Yes, or it won't. And I
Yeah.
think this is the problem, Nathan, that we have with Legacy and the previous point of superhero fatigue, right? So if we're saying yes, superhero fatigue is a thing, okay, great, we've got a new Superman, we've got a new Lois Lane coming out in 2 years. In the meantime, we are going to have Blue Beetle and we're going to have Aquaman, and how that works, I'm not too sure, because the Flash sort of canonizes Snyderverse. Iris is in there, Cavill's in there, even if he's only a CG. So Wonder Woman's there, Batman's there. That's canon. Justice League clearly isn't. But even though they keep saying that it is, but this is Snyderverse. But I don't know. But that's kind of Snyderverse is dead was the fake hashtag going around apparently from Zack Snyder that was completely debunked. So in 2 years' time, Nathan, after all of these, and I don't know what Marvel films are coming out in the interim, by 2025, July 18th, I think it comes out, or June 18th, or something like that. It comes out. It's got an uphill struggle, hasn't it? In terms of DC brand damage, in terms of superhero fatigue, in terms of a split fan base. And you talk about the Flash being scrutinized. This movie now is going to be under the microscope, because I guarantee you, as soon as they release the picture in his costume, if it has the pants, 50% of people are going to hate it. If it doesn't have the pants, 50% of people are going to hate it. It's just how it is. So it's already behind the curve. And I know Mikey always says, watch content, form opinion. Just concerned that it's really struggling already, and there hasn't been a single frame shot. A baddie hasn't been cast, and already we're thinking about all the potential things that it's got against it. Not like, wasn't it brilliant the way they tied up the DCEU with Flashpoint and how that ended up? That was so fucking epic. Like, everyone got what they wanted, and it was the culmination of a wonderful. No, it's not. Like, there's Fred's hanging. pissed off fans, happy fans, hateful fans, joyful. It's all a mess.
Well, Michael Lito says the Flash was fine. Thank you, Michael
Yes, it
Lito.
was, Mikey.
And
Absolutely, it was fine.
Tom Jr. Jackson says, I love the Flash and thought it was fun. It was a fun film to
Yeah,
watch.
did you go and see it again though, Tom? That's kind of the point. Yeah, it was fine. Like as Mikey just summed it up for me. It's fine. Will I go to the cinema again? No. Will I get it on DVD? Maybe, if it's got a director's commentary and stuff like that. Oh, and that's what I was going to say. Sorry, before we move on. And the direct, it was fine and it was fun. I'm not convinced he's the right guy to do Brave and the Bold. I don't know. He's done the horror movie, so maybe. But I said before on here, and the tone of the Flash, you can see. I've said before, all the needle drops and all that. It's pure James Gunn, right? I can't imagine that came from Andy Muschietti. It's like no, we need to. And the needle drops in the wrong place. But my point is the tone. And we were talking about Batman Brave and the Bold before, and as I've said, I think they're going to lean more into the Batman Brave and the Bold animated series, where it's sort of lighter and less grimdark, which I don't agree with. I think that would be a poor choice. Even though, as much as I loved Batman Brave and the Bold on Cartoon Network, or whatever it was a kids thing, and it was funny and it was fine and it was self-deprecating and yet reverential at the same time. So I don't know what we're going to do. But anyway, I digress. That was my point on that.
No, that's interesting. Tom Jr. Jackson says a lot of people were hoping it would fail. They were coming out and saying it. It's gross that people actually want films to fail. I've heard people say that they think that the film wouldn't make bank. And that's something that even a good film, there's no guarantee that even with a good film, it's going to make bank. Now, in regards to hoping something fails, this is people's opinions. I don't know whether we should spend too much time on wondering how people feel about that, because they can feel whatever way they want to about a film. We're not here to tell them they're wrong, right?
No, absolutely.
They can feel
Some people did come out and want it to fail, but they wanted it to fail for different reasons, didn't they? You had the really bad Snyder cultists who aren't going to see anything unless it's Zack Snyder, which I think is ludicrous. Then you've got the people that wanted it ousted because of Ezra Miller. Then you've got fan apathy because if you're a DC fan, you kind of know that whether you're a lover of the DCEU or a hater of it, what's the point in seeing the Flash? Either way. Oh fuck, I'll wait for it to come out on Apple or Amazon or whatever, or Max.
And then there's also people who are angry at Ezra Miller.
And you've got the whole Ezra Miller thing. Yes, exactly. Although how much of a footprint that has outside of fan circles, I don't know. But again, like Superman Legacy, it seems to have had a lot going against it before it started. And I just thought, I don't know. I mean, in and of itself, it's like a 3.5, 4.5 movie. Like, I really enjoyed it. I'm not going to sit here and go, "Yo, I thought it was shit," and I'm not going to sit here and pick holes in it and all that kind of thing. In and of itself, but as part of the wider whole, that movie just fails. It fails on so many levels. Like George Clooney at the end. What's that for, and why did you make that choice?
I'm sorry, they should have thrown Henry Cavill in there.
Right. Well, why do we? And then if you go back to the multiverse scene, yeah, okay, people have made there's a lot of fucking pearl clutching going on about Christopher Reeves and Adam West and George Reeves appearing, and oh my god, how dare that? Oh, but you didn't have a problem when it was Grand Moff Tarkin, did you? So just stop with the virtue signaling pearl clutching when it comes to Christopher Reeves. Sorry,
I found out, Russ, that there was this untold or unofficial thing about not showing Christopher Reeve as Superman after his unfortunate accident. I never knew anything about this. I never heard about that. I didn't even know that was a thing. I mean, had you heard about that?
No, I haven't heard about that, but he wouldn't have appeared unless his estate agreed to it.
Oh, okay. So perhaps there was some truth to that. I don't know, but I read something about it, and people were saying it's a disgrace that they're showing him like that, and I'm like, what is but then I thought about it and I said, we really haven't seen a lot of depictions of Christopher Reeve as Superman over the last few years in let's say popular media, and perhaps that's the reason why. I'm not sure, but a lot of people wanted it to fail for that reason.
Well, yes, you're quite correct, but this leads back to what I was sorry, it just leads back to tonally. That film was all over the place. Okay, so you've
Yeah,
got Christopher Reeves. That's a decent homage. I don't have a problem with it. Fine, if his family agreed and everyone's happy with it, and that you see him as Superman one last time, brilliant. But then you see like Nick Cage. Now, obviously, we know we get the joke,
yeah, yeah.
but who else does the general audience know about that whole saga? Like, no, that's a tonally, it's all over the place. And if there was a concern, well, why didn't you have Tom Welling dressed up as Superman? Why didn't you have Dean Cain dressed up as Superman? Why didn't you have Brandon Routh dressed up as Superman?
Yeah,
You
Brandon
could have had
Routh
all of them.
definitely could have been in this. That would have
Yeah.
been great. He still looks the same too. So it
Yes.
is a bit perplexing that, he wasn't a choice for this, but they did what they wanted to do. As far as I know, I don't know how popular of a Batman that other guy, I can't remember his name, the one at the end is.
George
Uh,
Clooney.
yeah, I don't really ever hear anybody even talk about him as Batman.
Well, no, it's become a meme in interviews, isn't it? He's constantly apologized for ruining the Batman franchise. Like even he knows that film wasn't very well received. Although apparently there's a director's cut of it, which apparently is better. But they made those choices at the time. My daughter saw that film when she was little, and she loved it. She loves Arnold Schwarzenegger anyway. She absolutely thought it was a right hoot because it was made for children, and it was made to sell burgers and toys and things like that. So no, it's not the grimdark continuation of the Burtonverse that perhaps many more mature fans wanted. But a film made money.
It's
But he
exactly.
did as Batman, like it wasn't taken seriously at all. But he did his job.
Yes, and thank you, Tom, for pointing this out. And also, what is this? I'm trying to find. Oh yes, Irene mentions that I don't think my son even knows who the Flash is, but he does know Spider-Man.
Well, now, Irene, I don't know. Your son doesn't. That's yes, facts, absolute facts. But the thing that the Flash has going for it is that show was insanely popular on the CW. Like it has to have been because it was been going for like 9 years, hasn't it?
It's a long time, yeah. And I like that guy who plays the Flash. I really like
Grant Gustin. Yeah, so I think he has popularity outside of the DCEU. Like people will know. Even my colleague Nikki at work she used to love Green Arrow and the Flash. Thought it was brilliant.
Oh, the guy who plays Green Arrow is super hot. That guy,
Stephen Amell.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, but yeah, in terms of what you're saying here, Irene, absolutely correct. Despite CW popularity, Spider-Man's a much bigger name, so I'm not surprised.
And Stavros is here. Hi, Stavros.
All right, Stavros.
I didn't get a chance to say hello to you. I'm falling behind on these. There's actually so many comments that there's so many comments that when I try to click on something, it just pops up and I can't go back to where I was. But let's see. Okay, I've read that already. Let's see. Stavros talks about Secret Invasion, and he says that it's heartbreaking along with the first episode of The Witcher. I've seen the first episode of Secret Invasion. I haven't seen the first episode of The Witcher. I know Cavill's in that season. I thought he wasn't. It's funny. I thought he wasn't going to be in season 3, but Keely Chow is here, Russ.
Hey, Keely Chow.
Yeah, roll tide. And Stavros says something about England football more like Greece football. I'm not quite sure. It's interesting.
It's because England and Greece are shit at football, basically.
Did you watch cricket yesterday?
The final's on today, final day of the test, and it's on now. No, I don't know what's happening. I actually turned it off in disgust because Australia did something that was legal, but not in the spirit of the game. And I just thought, that's why I really want Australia to lose absolutely every sport they play in, because there's winning and winning's important, but to do something that's not in the spirit of the game, especially cricket being such a gentleman's game, I just thought, oh, F you. And then I had to watch Extraction anyway and do a bunch of other things. So I turned it off. So I don't know what's happening. But yeah, second test, final day today. It's probably all over by now, I would have thought.
Yeah, and Stubble Mache says, I think it's a combination of fatigue and brand damage for SH movies. Certain audiences are probably permanently lost. For me, Stubble, and for everybody, if they make a good film, even with fatigue and brand damage, people will go and buy a ticket and see it, even if the brand is damaged. they'll go ahead and spend a bunch of money. I mean, the Super Mario movie, with the last film they made was not ideal. And although that the brand is not damaged, they went ahead and made an adorable film that people are watching, made over $1 billion. I think that, you know, that's a franchise that did well, and they had a film before that that wasn't necessarily the best. Maybe you're right, Stubble. I don't know, but I still say that even if the brand is damaged, if they made a fantastic Star Wars film right now that everybody was like, "Wow, that's one of the best Star Wars films I ever saw," and people spent money on tickets to see it, even with a damaged brand, you can still, because before Russ, bad films used to come out all the time in franchises, and then you'd get a good one. It was never 100% necessarily. So
Yeah,
I
well, James Bond is, famously up and down with its movies, but that's been going for like 1,000 years, hasn't it?
And Byford the Hobbit says the best ending was Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. Yeah, it was. They did.
Which one, by far? There were like 25 endings of that movie.
And thank you, Keely Chow. I love these. DCAU's greater than MCU, greater than DCEU. Darth Plato says bad products fatigues. There's a lot.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point, because these superhero movies, and the fucking audacity of James Gunn to come out and talk about formulaic superhero movies with the giant monster in the third act. It's like, dude, I literally watched the Suicide Squad. What are you talking about? But he has a point. That's a pot kettle black situation right there. But he does have a point. And it's been identified before. It's not like, we're the purveyors of like cinematic insight here. But the problem with these movies are they're so expensive, which makes hundreds of millions of dollars at risk, which makes people risk averse, which makes them then call back to things that they know are successful, which then results in generic movies that are all the same, and they don't make the money back that the investment cost because they're generic and they're all the same, but they're generic and all the same because they cost so much money. You're in this vicious cycle, aren't you?
Yeah, it is a vicious cycle, and I think that just in general, that's what seems to be happening now. People are even more informed than ever. Russ, Nathan Trujillo says, I mean, there were years where you couldn't find, let's say, a review that wasn't a journalist's review, and that journalist may not have the same taste as you. So you go and see the film, and then you don't care for it. But there was nowhere to go to hear people's comments about what may or may not be in a film. And for the most part, the one thing that I am going to say in regards to reviewing some of this stuff, it's like you have to watch the film for yourself. It's not good enough to kind of go by previews and all that sort of stuff. You have to actually see the film. So there is something to be said for viewing it. And then you're right, Mikey Lito, it does have a different impact. And you're perfectly, it's totally understandable to really dislike it or like it or whatever. But if you haven't watched it, I'm not quite sure how you can go ahead and review it. But Nathan Trujillo says it's not superhero fatigue. It's bad stories, filmmaking fatigue. Snyderverse and Guardians 3 box office show that people will show up for a great film. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Guardians did as well as they wanted it to, but I think there's certain people on the internet that were desperate for it to be a complete failure and trying to dress it up as a complete failure. I don't think it was a complete failure. I think it did okay. It sort of did okay in the same way 10 years ago Man of Steel did okay. It made money and it made a profit, but I don't think it was the profit that they wanted. But it doesn't matter with Guardians now, because he's literally said, well, that's it, I'm done, I'm not doing that anymore, I'm running DC into the ground perhaps, but I'm still running DC.
I thought Guardians 3 was the perfect ending, and I didn't realize that story needed to be told. I think that it's ironic, because I would have never guessed that would have been the plot for the movie. And it still shocked me. Like I was surprised at how shaken I was by the storyline. I really was shaken. I wasn't expecting that. And it's still
I don't know, but nobody was.
Yeah. Well, then I think he gets an A+ for originality. It was tough to watch, but we wanted something original. That certainly wasn't, it didn't feel like a copy of anything else to me. I felt like at least it was a try for something original and different. And honestly, I think there is a lot of talent into putting that together, because there was so much in it. There were so many details in it of that world. And I was convinced it was that world, versus, let's say, some other movies where they try to convince you you're in another location or dimension. I think he did a great job convincing me where they were and what was going on. So,
I mean, look, let me,
production
Yeah, absolutely. Let me say it. I think he's a really, really good filmmaker, and
Mhm.
I'm a petty, vindictive little fanboy. He's not my favorite filmmaker, and I know what I wanted, and I didn't get it, and my toys have been thrown away by James fucking Gunn. So I've got it in for him. I have. I'm not. I'm not gonna lie, and everybody knows how I feel on that. However, as I've said many, many times, I also went into bloody Zack Snyder's movie wanting to hate it and thinking it was going to be garbage, and it blew me away. So you
Mhm.
never know. Like he could turn it around. It's just the mood music that I'm hearing about the decisions that they're sort of making. I'm not. I'm not convinced. But then again, I wasn't convinced about Man of Steel. So we shall see. But just to sort of sorry, Aram, to turn it back full circle,
Yeah.
I don't think they could have found any. Well, they clearly didn't find anybody better because he looks like Superman. We know what he looks like in the suit. Let's hope he's brilliant. Let's hope it's wonderful. And I'll sit here and I'll eat the humble pie and say, yeah, no, it was great, and I was wrong, and my fears were not realized. This is a brilliant movie, and it's a shame about what happened to Henry and Snyderverse and all that stuff. But I'll always have, we'll always have Zack Snyder's Justice League. Maybe we can move on and it'll be ace.
Yeah, maybe. Norwegian Kryptonian. Hi, Norwegian Kryptonian. How are you? Says, I think DC completely overestimated the popularity of Michael Keaton's Batman. I don't think the movies with Keaton has aged very well. That is very interesting. I think it's certainly a specific aesthetic, Norwegian Kryptonian. For example, just because I find Michael Keaton smoking hot doesn't mean that everybody else does. So, I'm looking at Michael Keaton from a different point of view. I saw him a few years ago in The Protege, and I'm equally impressed that the 70-year-old man can still bring it. But at the same time, I don't want to see necessarily, his Batman get killed. Like, I don't want to see that. I want him to live. I don't want him to die in the film. So there are certain things in it that happen that I don't really consider it a spoiler now, but and I don't even know whether he completely died or not, but I didn't want to see that, Russ. But
Well,
it was
no, I mean, I don't care actually that he died or if he didn't die. But if you're going to give that character, especially it's fucking Batman, for God's sake, whichever iteration of Batman it is in that sort of film, that moment, the death of Batman, come on, it's a pivotal, huge, gigantic moment in whatever universe it's in, which occurs approximately 90 seconds after a comedy needle drop.
yeah.
What are you doing? What are you doing? What the hell are you doing? Isn't it with the flashes? Like, who's it for? Because fans are going to know who, and they're going to get the joke, and they're going to get the music, and they're going to understand it, and they're going to understand the Nicolas Cage bits. But yeah, I think you're right. Actually, we know, but does Sam know? My daughter, does she? Does she? Well, she does know because obviously because me. But does her boyfriend know? No, he doesn't.
um, um, uh, Stavros says Canada Day was yesterday. That's great,
Oh,
Stavros.
Canada.
Yeah, all right. Um, and Tom Jr. Jackson talks about going to the earliest show of the day, and it's because it's cheaper and less to know people in the theater. Okay, fair enough.
That's funny. I saw an early one as well, but not because of that reason. It's just because we decided to go to an early one.
And Keeley says it's not superhero fatigue; it's mediocrity fatigue.
Tell
Yeah.
you what, Keely Chow, that's a brilliant name for a band, isn't it? Mediocrity Fatigue. I like that.
And Gary Bando Sandwich Worthington says superheroes have been batting zeros and I can't read. Gosh,
They've been
falling.
batting zeros and failing the hardcore fans. Yes, they have. 100%, Gal. 100%. The hardcore tiny minority fanboys who aren't seen or deemed as important by the people making these decisions, they're your core audience, man. I don't care what I will bang this drum, and I've banged it on here time and time and time and time again. They're the ones you want to keep happy. They're the ones that will go and see it 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 times. They're the ones that will go and buy the shit that goes with it. They're the ones that will stream it. They're the ones that will buy the physical media. They're your long tail. And both comic titans, DC and Marvel, have just done that to their core fan base in many,
Absolutely.
many instances.
Mike Alito says the only trailers I watch anymore are the ones before the feature in the theater. No more YouTube trailers or commentary. And Chronicles says, I think they overdid it. We need the odd break, something original, which is not where they want to go. They just want to rehash all the old IPs. Yeah, maybe they do.
We've got Rebel Moon coming out. That should be good. That's original, even though apparently it's just Zack Snyder's Star Wars. But hey, I'll watch it.
Retro Nerd Girl says WBD killed their own movies before they released by announcing too many details about what they were planning too soon. Yeah. Yeah, I don't like when they tell us too many details. I like when they keep us more surprised. Wex Wuther says no pants. Some things do need to be updated.
Wex, go onto Reddit. You'll just see people hating each other over Superman's underpants. But there you go. It's a hot topic.
And Mikey Lito makes a good point about, well, we had a break because of the lockdown. Do we need another one because of the various strikes? Are these not enough? This is a good question. I don't know, Mikey Lito. I think something that has happened is that with these breaks, let's say the lockdown break was unplanned. And when you have an unplanned break, that also affects content. So it wasn't just the timing of when it comes out. A lot of times it affected the storylines. For example, in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I think that the television series where they had to change what the problem was in the story because of the lockdown, it creates issues. I think they should have stuck with it. Just stick with the original situation and just have enough confidence in your original writing to go forward with it.
If they'd have done that 10 years ago, we would now be hugely excited looking at these pictures. Can you imagine? We've literally just come off the back of Justice League 3. The whole thing is finished, and we some of us loved it, some of us didn't. But that's been, and now we've got new Superman. People would be going nuts for it if they'd have done as you said. Just stick with it. Yeah. It will. If you build it, they will come. But they didn't. They interfered, as I've said many times. People don't need to hear me talk about how they butchered BVS and all that stuff.
No, it's a good point. And Retro Nerd Girl says that there was a ton of free screeners, like it was ridiculous. Yeah, maybe it was. I had no idea, Retro Nerd Girl. I didn't know that there was that many for the Flash.
There really was, Arum. There really was, and a lot of people were saying it was almost like they just kept at it in the desperate hope that some buzz would be generated. But it's just, as Mikey Litter said, it was fine, and fine just doesn't generate massive buzz.
Mm-hmm. And I also want to show here, Stubble says, do you think the added cost of recasting Ezra a year ago and reshoot would have made them lose less money in the end?
I think. What do you think? What do you think, Arum?
No, I don't think it would have made them lose less money. I think if it was the same story, it would have just been the same. The story with Ezra is okay. See, Ezra did a beautiful job in this film. He's a great actor. He acted twice. There are some scenes, Russ, that I see in this film where I actually have to do a double take because I can't believe it doesn't feel like it's two different Ezra's acting. It feels like these are two different people. And he convinces me that this is really happening. What I didn't care for is what they're making him do in the film, which is to go back and try and stop this thing so his mother can be spared. And, what I was doing was comparing it to No Way Home, where in No Way Home, the act, I'm not going to say it was necessarily, he's trying to bring somebody back from the dead. This is what we're talking about. This is what the Flash is doing. Mm-hmm. And that is, quite a impossible task. Whereas what Spider-Man was trying to do was, well, can it just be where they didn't meet me and, they can get into their colleges they want to get into. Like it wasn't exactly the same type of wish or thing that he was trying to accomplish. And the similarities of, a character trying to change what happened in the past is I think is a little uncanny. I thought that they were going to get I think they thought they were going to get the kind of response from what the character Flash was doing that Spider-Man got in No Way Home.
Sure, but I mean that was the point of Flashpoint. That's why Flashpoint happened. That was Barry actually going back in time trying to save his mum, and all the fallout, because of it. And just to your point, when we were talking about mixed messages coming from the Flash and its thing part of a larger whole, why did they rehash the General Zod plot? It's basically to say, if you don't have Superman, this is what will happen to planet Earth. Like, we need, Superman needs to be alive. So we have to reset the timeline, because if Superman's not alive, then the world dies and everything. So you would expect him to go back to Snyder world, and that would be the end of the film, and that would have been a good way to end it. Like, Bruce Wayne gets out of the car and Clark Kent's there, interviewing him, and he's like, oh, fucking everything's fine, brilliant, no problem. But yeah, mixed messages. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, I don't.
Cost of recasting Ezra. I honestly think, with the benefit of hindsight, which was 2020, they just shouldn't bother with Blue Beetle or Aquaman now. Just put them on Max and go, you know what? This is dead. And maybe, as I spitball this thought, thank you, Stubble, would it not be a sort of Avengers Endgame moment for DC to say, do you know what? We're hitting pause here. We're going to put our properties on our exclusives, or we're going to license them out to Amazon, or whatever we're going to do with them. There's nothing coming in the DCU for 2 years. There's going to be so you bury those movies on a platform and you release them on, or you give them a limited theatrical release or whatever, try and make them a little bit special. Maybe the anticipation and the hype for a new DC movie building up over the next 2 years, knowing that the stuff's now finished and it's only on HBO Max, maybe that might work in their favor.
Wex Wuther says we have to judge director Andy by a movie he shepherds from start to finish. He was cleaning up a mess on. Yeah, that's true. It was how many years? And Mikey Ludo says it probably would have lost more. Interesting, Mikey Ludo. Nathan says WB and DC films will stick with Nolan Reeves' Batman tone for Brave and the Bold.
I don't know. I'm not honestly not convinced, Nathan. I'm honestly not convinced. But we will see.
Chronicle says break as in not superheroes and full on CG action, Mikey. I look back on a lot of recent films and they are starting to merge into each other. Yes, you can argue that's because a lot of it is rubbish. Interesting. Tom Jr. Jackson says Cavill was in the movie in the Speed Force.
Yeah, he was there at the beginning as well. You saw him from the back. I mean, they acknowledged his existence. Well, I have to, because they canonized Snyderverse, so he had to be in there in some way, shape, or form. But you've said many times, haven't you? Did they want him there? Was it too expensive to get him back? Was it the contractual situation? Who knows at the time? But then he was back. He did shoot those scenes at the end, and everyone was happy until they weren't.
Yeah. And Chronicles says, Mikey Ludo says people don't seem to take on other kinds of content. Stavros,
right.
Stavros says casting is fine to me. Yeah. I think it's very interesting that, I'm eager to see Rachel in a different role than Mrs. Maisel. And I'm sure she's done other roles, but I think this would be very interesting for her. She's won a lot of critical acclaim for Maisel. And I hope that they give her a script where, it could be up to that same level for her.
It's out of the DC playbook, is it's exactly what Snyder did, like a handsome, decent actor, relatively unknown, who's going to be Lois Lane. Oh, this award-winning legend. And it seems like they've done the same playbook here.
Yes. That's what they're hoping to do. Which is we're thinking in the same vein here. It says, aside from fantasy, this is from Mikey Lito, aside from fantasy, comic book, and horror, what kinds of films gain any traction? I just read a news story that called Scream comfort food. Yeah, that is something to think about. And Nathan says that mainstream media is raving about casting Superman Legacy. Yeah, and I'm not surprised that they're raving about it, because we're well overdue for a film too, right? I mean, we're well overdue for this. It's been too long.
Yeah, it's
Um,
10 years since the Superman movie.
Retro Nerd Girl says they deleted Linda Carter's Wonder Woman from the movie. She would have been great. Yeah, that
Mm.
wasn't cool. That wasn't cool at all. She should have been in there, uh, turning around and then appearing or whatever way they in her invisible plane or whatever it was.
Oh, before we move on, Retro, I was going to say, just seeing Retro there, because I know she follows this guy called Aaron Fisher, who does a lot of DC commentary, and he was saying, and I quite, as I'm doing a little bit of an aside, but as a biased fan, I thought, yeah, this is absolutely a genius idea. You know what? You've got the writer's strike, you've got the 10-year anniversary of Man of Steel, you've got all these problems. Why don't you just release, over a period of months, Man of Steel, BVS Ultimate Edition, um, what's his name? The Ayer cut of Suicide Squad, yeah, a recut version of just put all these back in the cinema because they're all made, they're all in the can. Nobody has to write anything. You can just release these movies and just see how they go. You know, Snyder fans will love it. They'll make some money, and everyone's a winner. And I quite like that idea. So of course, it will never happen, but wouldn't it be great if it did?
Yeah, it would be great, and something to think about. Stavros says No Way Home is legendary, and when you rewatch it, you see a different side of the villains' opinions. Not too many movies where you side with the villains. Yes, Stavros, I felt sorry for the villains, and I didn't want to feel sorry for villains. But I think that if you have good writing and you can make a story, and it just works like the way it does in No Way Home, that's my impression of one of the best superhero movies of all time.
Mm.
And ironically, it doesn't really start off with anything like what you would think. I think that he's trying to do a selfless act, and even with the selfless act, it doesn't work. So he learns his lesson, but I think it is very interesting. Even in an act of kindness and altruism, things can get all foobar, right? Um, Wex Luthor says that I had to explain Nick Cage being in Flash to someone, and even that it was Nick Cage.
Yeah.
Well, Mikey Lito makes a point about the 80s being 40 years ago. And that is something to think about. Two generations. Someone said something about two generations. Did I miss it?
I actually don't understand the reference there. Their desire two times the pain. I don't understand that, Mikey. I'm sorry, mate. I missed the comment that you might be referring to.
Yeah, I think he meant about Scream being comfort food. But
Okay.
and whoever made the comment, and I might have already read it about the 80s being 40 years. Oh, it was Mikey Lito. Okay. Okay. So let's see what happens with this Superman choice. And I hope that Rachel plays Lois differently from the way she plays Mrs. Maisel. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'm
Uh,
sure she will.
I sure hope
I,
so.
I, I pretty much feel I've got absolutely no basis other than my heart telling me. I very much feel they're going to try and recreate Chris Reeves, Margot Kidder vibes with these two. I don't know. I was just looking at them. She doesn't give me a Terry Hatcher vibe. She certainly doesn't give me Terry Hatcher, the finest Lois Lane ever committed to any form of film, by the way.
Yeah,
Um, oh, she was fucking superb in that show. She was superb. I prefer her even to Betsy. I think Betsy McCulloch in the new one in Superman and Lois, who's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
But yeah, Terry Hatcher was perfect. Yeah, I think that's what they're going for. But that's based on nothing.
I can't wrap my head around her for this role because of Mrs. Maisel. So, however, I'm not the kind of person who's going to say, well, she could never play it. That's not what I'm saying.
Mm.
What I'm saying is Mrs. Maisel is so, like, she's such a different style of character. So this is going to be a jump for me, and I'm eager to see her just completely transform um into Lois and whatever version of Lois they give her. But I'm kind of glad that she is doing something different. Retro
Mm.
Nerd Girl says the saddest problem with the Flash is that it doesn't connect or relate to anything that is upcoming. I think Aquaman is in big trouble. Wow, I mean, the first Aquaman made $1 billion, and now the sense that there would be something wrong with Aquaman is really disappointing.
Well,
Uh,
that end credit sequence was just asinine, wasn't
yeah,
it?
yeah, it was, but you know, the movie as a whole was wonderful without the end credit scene. I just think, I think Aquaman has so much potential. Gosh, I hope it doesn't get spoiled, like you say, Retro Nerd Girl. Let's see what happens, of course. Now, Mike Alito says Guardians of the Galaxy series, including the Christmas special, was an excellent story arc and could stand completely apart. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Tom Jr. Jackson says he's been a fan of James Gunn since his indie film days. Yes.
Oh. Corrin's Wet. I thought it was Corn's Wet, but it's Corrin's Wet.
Yeah, Corn Sweat. And Stubble says, I think the casting of Lois is a great choice. I hope it delivers.
They always cast great, Stubble. I mean, I think that's, as we have said so many, I've said it 3 times on this call, right? You know, they always get that bit right.
And guys, make sure you like and subscribe to Tom Jr. Jackson's channel. Tom is the moderator, collaborator, and good friend here on Positive Fandom. Make sure you subscribe to his channel. You don't want to miss it, guys. All right. Now, Russ, we've been talking a lot about this. And what else? Oh, Bonzo Kilborn is here, says, what's cracking, party people? Sorry, I'm late. What did I miss? You missed a lot, Bonzo.
No, we were just killing time till you got here. Don't worry about it, Bonzo.
And apparently, oh, Nathan also makes a point that that Christian Bale was asked, I guess, to be in it, but he
I thought he had filmed his thing, but I went and searched about this afterwards. So nice one, Nathan. Yeah, and he said absolutely not. And again, this is the mood music coming out of the DC, not EU, the DCU. People are distancing themselves from it. Affleck, apparently, as we said before, he was in a meeting with James Gunn, apparently, and James Gunn, oh yeah, no, maybe he'll even direct the Batman. Ben Affleck said, I don't like anything they're doing over there. And Christian Bale doesn't want anything to do with it. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? But a good point.
And Mike Alito says, I think that Sony and Marvel have written themselves into a corner, because when MJ tries to remember who Peter is, it will probably be unsatisfying. You know something, Mikey? Let's see what happens.
I was just about to say, well, hey, Mikey, I tell you what, maybe you should watch it and reserve your opinion until you've seen it.
He comes back with breaking my own rule.
Too slow, Russ, too slow.
I think that she already remembered because she saw him in the store and she remembers him. I think that she's pretending not to remember because she knows he did the spell so everybody would forget him. So I think the spell didn't work. That's what I think. For somebody, for a lot of the people who were supposed to be under this spell, and I think things didn't go the way it should. We already know it didn't go the way it should, right? So yeah. All right. So Jamin and D is here. Hey, Jamin D.
Hey, man.
Hope you're well. And look, Mario Lopez is here.
Mario. Hello, Mario.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late. I had a family lunch. Good to see you all. That sounds great, Mario. Hope your family lunch was great.
Yeah, I'm going to get a Chinese takeaway for dinner. I've decided I'm going early.
Ooh, nice. Mario says, Russ, I finished Gladiatrix and I really liked your book.
Well, thank you, Mario. I'm not particularly too proud of Gladiatrix, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. The second two are better, I think. But thank you so much for buying it, and thank you so much for reading it. Chuck a review on Amazon if you would like to. That's always kind of helpful. But
Jamin D wants to know if we think fans are happy with the casting. I would say, yeah, they are happy with the casting because the two people they picked look great for the roles. And I think that, as I said, I'm eager to see Rachel play something other than Mrs. Maisel. But I don't know much about the other actor. Russ, what do you think? These are our opinions. We don't know for sure. This is just in our opinion.
From what I've seen on the social media from Reddit, nobody, not even the most Snydery of Snyder fans, has a problem with the casting per se. The most Snydery of Snyder fans have a problem with the casting because it isn't Henry Cavill, but not with Corrinsware. Right. You know, it's not like fuck this guy. He's going to be. It's not a Heath Ledger, Ben Affleck response. It's like yeah, he looks great, but F you, James Gunn. That's more where the ire is, I think. So yeah, I think people are reasonably happy with it.
And interestingly enough, I'm eager to see Rachel play something other than Mrs. Maisel. So I'm sure she has, but I want to see her in something new now. As far as I'm concerned. Hey, Tom Jr. Jackson says he's fine with the casting, and that's good to hear. Oh yeah. Let's see. Oh, Irene says she loves Terry Hatcher. Wasn't she great?
Oh,
Yeah,
she's perfect. My goodness, how beautiful was Terry Hatcher?
yeah.
Oh my God, like looking at her just hurt your eyes. And she was
At
her
any age.
performance,
Mhm.
yeah, her performance in that show was so good. In fact, I think her and John Shea, who played Lex Luthor, for me are my favorite celluloid incarnations of those. I thought John Shea was so good in season one. Then they just went off the rails with nonsense in seasons, in the rest of the seasons. But the first season of the new event, was it Lois and Clark, the New Adventures of Superman? That first season, despite its ropey effects and weird choice of actor to play Superman, I have to say he's not your traditional Superman look, but he kind of worked for me. Was a fantastic season of TV. I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed John Shea, and I enjoyed Terry. And it was great fun. But I think Shea and Hatcher, I've never really seen anything that I thought was as good as their interpretations of those characters.
Oh wow. Um Norwegian Kryptonian says he wants to see Henry Cavill as Darth Bane. I would love to see Henry Cavill get these other roles of like these heavy hitting characters because he can play them. He brought The Witcher to life, and I never thought that would work on screen, but he brought it to life. It was like, yeah, this is badass. He has the ability to do that in a way that I think a lot of people really enjoy watching.
I saw an
Stavros,
interview with Cavill actually recently, or about just a snippet I saw. He was talking about Warhammer 40k and this project. This bloke was saying, "Well, who are you going to play? What about this character?" And he goes, "Well, yeah, but if I do that one," I said, "I've only got one shot." He said, "I've got to get it right," and it's like a huge pressure as to who I'm going to play, because once I say I'm going to be whoever he's going to be, one of the Inquisitors or one of the Space Marines, that's it. That's who he's going to be, and he's going to be stuck then as that character. So he's really taking it seriously.
absolutely. Stavros says he's happy with it. Sign him up on board. And Nathan says Rachel is an award-winning actress. She will be a great Lois Lane. Nathan, I am dying to see her in another role. So it's like, thank goodness she's doing that. Darth Plato says book 2 and 3 for Russ were good books, guys. We have the link
Thanks.
here.
Oh, playtime.
In the description. Thank you so much, Tom G. Jackson. Guys, just click on the Amazon store to get Russ's Gladiatrix series. He's got
I've never
3
seen that
books.
link before. Is that a new thing? Storefront? I didn't even know.
Yeah, you can follow the author
Oh shit.
on Amazon. Right, Tom? Um, so yeah, make sure you do that, guys. And also follow Just a Brown Girl's channel here uh,
Mm.
as well. She is here in the chat. Go ahead and look at Just
Support independent filmmakers, guys. It is important. Oh, talking of which, I'd like to give actress, martial arts performer Cecily Faye a shout out. I think her stuff's on YouTube now. But if you please Google her and watch one of her movies or rent it on Amazon, you've got Warrior S and you've got Flower of Sarnia, which I wrote. Um,
Wow.
yeah, back in the day. But I didn't get a credit in the end because they changed it. But yeah, I wrote that one. But yeah, I spent the weekend with Cecily actually. We had such a great time, and as I was saying at the beginning, she's had this idea, and I met that director. But yeah, do check out Cecily Faye if you like ass kicking chicks. She's tiny though, so it makes it even better. But she does all her own stunts, and it's all authentic stuff. These aren't expensive movies, but they're great fun, and I highly recommend giving them a watch.
Yeah. Do you have a link for her or anything like that,
If you
Russ?
just go to YouTube or Google and just type in Cecily Faye, you'll find her stuff. She's got a channel on YouTube that she can't get into at the moment, apparently. But yeah, Warrior S and Flower of Sanya, I think, are on Amazon, but I think you can probably get them free on YouTube as well.
All right. Let's see if I can do that.
I'm sure Tom's on the case already.
All right. So then I'll leave it to him for and
Just the Brown Girl, first name Cecily space, second name Fay, Cecily Faye. Right. So with that
yes.
parish parish announcement out of the way. We spent a lot of time talking about Superman and Flash and all those sort of things, and all these expensive movies that have to make all of this money to even make, turn a profit, or break even, let alone turn a profit. I have a movie that's fairly reasonably budgeted that I think we would use to talk about. Will we not?
Yes, we are going to talk about something like that. And guys, I was going to say, uh, don't forget tomorrow at 7 p.m. There will be another episode of Cat's Corner on the Burnettwork, guys. So please do check that out at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday. Cat's Corner. Cat shares her extensive physical media collection with everybody on the Burnettwork. So please do check that out. And also subscribe to Mikey Lito's channel. Mikey Lito Live, guys. Mikey Lito. I like to say it that way. Mikey Lito Live. Like I just like that. Okay. So, yes. All right. And some of you were talking about indie and what you thought about the film. And I have not seen No Hard Feelings, but I want to see it, Nathan. And we are going to start to talk about and Nathan says Asteroid City was good too. Oh, that's very interesting. I will check those out, Nathan, and thank you for sharing what you thought about them. Yes. Last week, we started to talk about a film, two films actually, Russ, that have been absolutely extraordinary on Netflix, starring Hemsworth, that a lot of people have been talking about. And those movies are his Extraction IP, essentially what's happening. He's made these two remarkable films. And Russ, I had heard about Extraction and I'd seen it on Netflix and I wondered about the film and I didn't know much about it other than you see a picture of Hemsworth in this role. And then slowly but surely, just like a lot of films like this, I started to hear from you and from other people in the community how remarkable the film was. So I watched it. I mean, on the recommendation of other people in the community as to why I would even see Extraction. And sure enough, I watched it and I loved it. And, I watched both of them. I watched Extraction from 2020 as well as Extraction from this year, which is the 2023 one that was made. And as I think you had said that the one actually gets better than the other, which is also something that I was not expecting. But it's just such a remarkable film
I
that
wouldn't say better. I would say complimentary, but yeah.
Yeah, it is such a remarkable film that I it's not that I wasn't expecting it to be remarkable. It's just that when he made, I think he's been making obviously he's known mostly, let's say, or one of the biggest roles as Thor, and that movie wasn't exactly what people hoped for. Then in 2020 he makes Extraction, which like this score is not really befitting of of the film. I think that Extraction is more like in the 8.5 to 9 category of a film. But I promised that we would talk about it because it was such an enjoyable film to watch. And Tom Jr. Jackson has Cecily Faye's channel right here in the chat, guys. So make sure you click on here to get to Cecily Faye's
Yeah.
YouTube channel.
Sorry, I just have to add. So you'd probably be into this actually. So she does EDM as well, and it does a brilliant song on there called Paper Tigers, which is my favorite song by her. But about 20 years ago, there was a film called Kevin and Perry Go Large, which is a British sort of comedy movie, and it was like a rave track in there or something like that when they go to the big nightclub in Ibiza. And of course, that was the Morrigan who did it, and now it's come forward 20 years, so they're doing a thing about it. So this bloke in Australia has done a remix of that song, and he's also done a remix of a cover of Running Up That Hill, I think it is. What was the one from Stranger Things? Yeah, not that one. It was the other one, Cloud Busting, I think. She's done a Kate Bush cover as well on this new rave album. So go check it out.
Yeah, that I had no idea. Of course I'm going to have to check this out now. I wish
Paper
I could
Tigers, yeah, do such a. And I don't like EDM, right? I'm synthwave and metal, but that one, because she's got really unique voice as Cecily. It's really unique. It's kind of Kate Bushy. It's a bit toyish. It's a bit, but it's beautiful, but very, very distinct. I absolutely love it.
I can't wait to hear it. I am definitely going to check it out, guys. Make sure you check out Cecily's YouTube channel. Check out everything when you go to the link and find out more. She's such an amazing performer. And thank you, Russ, for bringing it to our attention. I'm so excited to hear it. This is why sometimes I wish we could play music and video on here, but we can't. But I definitely am eager to play this. And Mike Alito says maybe I'll watch those this afternoon. Maybe he's talking about Extraction.
He is talking about Extraction, and you totally should, man. They're awesome.
Retro Nerd Girl says, I'm so glad you got to see Extraction, Arden. Yes, Retro Nerd Girl. I am so happy that I saw them. And we were talking about it last week. You were not here, Russ. I was I did the show solo, and I started to talk about we talked about a lot of things last week, but to be honest with you, this was Mike Alito. If you watch it this afternoon, you better make the popcorn, have your drinks ready, have your gummy bears, whatever you eat, because this is going to be such an enjoyable ride. And then on top of it, there's another movie, Extraction Part 2, Mike Alito. You are going to love this viewing of Extraction. Lorena Creole and I are going to be doing a watch party of Extraction and Extraction 2. It's going to be incredible. It's just, oh my gosh. Now, Russ, I've got to tell you, there have been a lot of films coming out, and, this is actually a pretty good time for some of these. I consider Hemsworth an A-list Hollywood star. It's a pretty good time for a lot of these A-list Hollywood stars who are more physical, who want to do physical roles, who want to do action films. Earlier this year, we got John Wick, which was stellar. We've been seeing films, and I'm not going to say this is a fully foreign or domestic film. I don't know who is behind the production on this film, but let's just say that a good portion of this film takes place overseas, in India. I'm assuming it is India. It could be in Pakistan or Sri Lanka for all I know, but it was
in India and Thailand where they shot it.
Okay, so it was in Asia, primarily set in Asia. And, this is exactly the type of film that we are looking for when it comes to action, when it comes to a good storyline, when it comes to a character, especially a male character, that we can believe in. He's realistic, and yes, he happens to be Hemsworth, who's incredibly attractive. Okay, so I am saying that he is smoking hot. He's one of the hottest men on screen. He doesn't have to be as bulk as he was in Thor. He looks hot. He looks even hotter in, like, let's say, in his normal physical condition, let's say, because I know you and I've had the discussion about what it takes for him to build up to that bulk. He does not need that. I like the warrior version of Hemsworth here. And to be honest with you, Russ, I think that this really is showing that this is what people want to see. If you go on to Netflix, it's the number one film and the number 10 film, and it just keeps going back and forth in popularity.
I believe and somebody in chat, please check this out, but I believe Extraction, when it came out in 2020, was the most viewed thing on Netflix ever in its period. Now, because I was skim reading sort of some facts for it, but I think regardless, it was hugely popular.
Oh, interesting. This is very interesting. Stavros says Hemsworth is not typecast to me. I can see him in any clothing and not refer to him as where is your hammer and cape. Yeah, Stavros. Yeah. That is very interesting. And thank you for the compliment on my singing. Stubble, I would sing more. It's just that you can't sing on YouTube because, like, stuff gets pulled down, and I on more than one occasion, that's happened to me. So it's not fun when you're singing and then, your channel gets pulled down because you're singing a famous song. But thank you for the kind words, Stubble. Okay. Retro Nerd Girl says Sam Hargrave is turning out to be a rising star as a director. I adore the lighting and camera work in the 2 Extraction films, along other incredible elements. Gee, Retro Nerd Girl, I couldn't agree with you more. The setting was wonderful. But yes, the lighting, the camera work, it's wonderful. It's absolutely so exciting and thrilling. Um, yeah, the performances. I just love the fighting scenes. I like the guy in Extraction who he has to fight, who's also special forces.
Oh, Sabu.
Oh, so good between the two of them. And you know immediately when he comes up against a special forces person, because it's like it's not a straight up kill, you know, it's like, oh, yeah, you're fighting somebody who may be on the same level as you. It's absolutely just so fulfilling to see it. You know, I think it's interesting, and you know, we've talked a lot about, you know, what Hollywood is trying to promote, and you know, all those sorts of things that we are seeing in modern films. But to me, I feel like this, you and I were talking about what's happening to the action and adventure, who's going to be the next star in action adventure. And, you know, I mean, do you think he will continue? Because they are making this into a huge franchise, right, Russ?
Well, I don't know if they're making it into a huge franchise because it's only ever appeared on Netflix, and I feel it's a real shame that they didn't have the balls that um, the John Wick guys had, and just think, you know what, this is. I think John Wick cost 50 million, and this cost 65, so it's $15 million, but in the grander scheme of things, it's not a lot of money, and that's kind of what the drinker has been saying for many, well, not for many years, for a few years now. These films are too expensive to make. They have to make $1 billion to make a profit. Something like Extraction does not. And I imagine a theatrical release of Extraction would have done John Wick money. It probably would have beaten John Wick because Hemsworth, especially 2 years ago, had that Marvel brand recognition that people would have gone to the cinema to see him, but they hedged their bets. But what I loved about this, with what Retro Girl is saying, she's absolutely correct with Sam Hargrave. If you watch it, lots of the fight scenes that they have are continuous takes. There's a lot of shaky cam going on in there, but you can't take that. You can't take Hemsworth's not a martial artist, but they've done a really good job with this, and I'm not going to take that away from him. I'm not going to criticize him and go, "Oh no, they use shaky cam because he's no good," because the takes are really long. It's like a lot of continuous take stuff going on, and you know why that is? It's because these films were shot in India, Thailand, and Eastern Europe for the second one, right? And you know
Mm-hmm.
what that means? It's cheap, and you've got all the crews, you've got an entire film industry over there, but your dollars will buy you so much more. And in terms of a movie like this, it will buy you so much more time to do it because you've got the money, and the money's going to go further, and then you've got more time in which to do these things. And the result of it, if this was 1987, this would be Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? It's exactly that kind of movie. And you're right, RM. People are craving it. I've read some reviews, and I couldn't believe the mainstream were attacking it. White savior syndrome and all that ultra violent, too violent, this, and I just thought, you people are just miserable. You just don't want to be entertained. You just want to slag things off. And that this is positive fandom. And I want to rave until the wee hours about how brilliant Chris Hemsworth is. In fact, how brilliant all the actors are in these shows. How it delivers absolutely everything you want. And people go, "Oh no, they haven't got much depth." Well, no, maybe they don't. I mean, if you're looking for, you know, I don't know, some sort of Stanislavski examination of theatrics. It's not what you're going to get from these films. But the guy's got a decent arc. I mean, it's simple, but we understand why Tyler Rake, which is a name only in action hero. Can you imagine if you were like, I don't know, if you look like me and my name was Tyler Rake? I mean, I can't pull off a Tyler Rake kind of name, like, do you know what I mean?
It sounds
Or if
like
I
a
was,
video game character too.
it
Like
totally
it's
does. Although I read it recently that John Carpenter knew a guy who was talking about one of his friends, his friend was called Snake Plissken. And John Carpenter's like, that's the best name I've ever heard in my life. I have to do something with it. So facts, like there is an actual, or there was in the 80s, an actual Snake Plissken. Yeah. So we get that we meet this guy, um, Tyler Wright. Well, because the movie starts, Extraction starts off with a little bit of a rebellious teen doing. Yes, he did. Bonzo Kilborn says here, Hemsworth has the hard man 1,000 yard stare down perfectly without looking silly or trying too hard. No, he's a fucking great actor. He's a really good actor. Is Hemsworth, and he played this role to perfection. Yeah, so we start off in India, rebellious teen gets kidnapped. What I loved about the setup to this movie was we understand why all the mayhem happens from what the little kid, I think his name's Ozzy, um, his dad says this is not about money, this is about humiliation. And okay, it's only a small line, but that then you kind of end up thinking, well, why would the other kingpin, obviously this special forces guy is like mowing down all of his men, like he's losing millions of dollars in men and equipment. Why? Well, because it's all about ego. That's what's driving this whole male ego is driving the whole plot. Look, let's be honest, guys. This is a testosterone fueled, ultra violent movie with a little bit of sentimentality into it, and yeah, their lack of confidence in it as a franchise actually plays into the strength of this film. It is ending. We got to do spoilers, right? I mean, it's 2 years old, so you know,
Yeah, for the 2-year-old one, yeah, we could do spoilers. It's 3 years, right?
yeah, 3 years now. The fact that they kill him off at the end, and the way the film goes full circle, where it starts off where Chris Hemsworth is immersed in water, and he dies, and he does die. I mean, he's dead at the end, right? And of course they have to bring him back for number two, but the way that they bring him back is quite good, actually. But as a complete movie in and of itself, it was great. They had a story about a guy and finished it, and I really really loved that. And it was just, and I love the bit. Who was the actor that played his mate, the American that double crosses him?
He's the
That
guy from Stranger Things and also
yeah,
from
he,
Bad Santa or Violent Christmas or something like that.
Violent Night. Yeah. Oh my God, David Masters, is it? Can't think of his name. That's so terrible. I apologize to you, sir, if you're
His
watching.
name is oh dear, David Harbour.
David Harbour. Thank you. Um, yeah, so I can't play it highly enough, and I just thought the hand-to-hand combat scenes especially were brutal. When the first fight he has when he's rescuing the kid, and what made me laugh, but he actually kills someone with a rake, which I thought was quite funny. He kills two people with a rake actually,
And of course,
which
it was deliberate. It was a deliberate choice.
oh yeah,
Um,
it had to be. I mean, why would they have a rake in a flat? But it was just like, how are you going to kill it? And the director, let's use a rake. That'll be hilarious. I didn't know that this movie was based on a graphic novel, but apparently it is.
mhm,
So it's not an action. It's not a pure action movie per se, because it's based on a existing property. But this is what we want. Give us. This is certainly what I want. And I watch Scott Adkins movies all the time, and this could easily have been a Scott Adkins movie. This is the kind of stuff that he does. It's the kind of stuff that Gerard Butler's doing. It's the kind of stuff that Keanu Reeves is doing. And you
mhm.
know what? Your favorite guy from Avatar, Sam Worthington,
Yes.
and and also Taylor Kitsch could do a lot worse than start doing stuff like this. Get yourself a deal with Netflix. Go and pitch something to Netflix. Get yourself in an action movie. Especially Sam Worthington been an Aussie as well. He could be on Rake's team, or he could be, it could be Extraction verse, because they were talking about doing a prequel about Cebu. I'm not sure that's the direction I would want to see this show going, but I wouldn't mind seeing something else in the Tyler verse. Or is it the Rake verse? Or is it the Extraction verse? What are we going to call it?
They're calling it the Extraction verse
Well, I
because they're
prefer I prefer Tyler verse, but we'll go with Extraction verse.
I think 3 is already is signed off on, which is not a shocker. And they're talking about a little bit more. I can't remember a video game. They're talking about, taking it full circle with a lot of things. And I do want to thank Mikey Lito for saying I would have loved to have known RM during those disco days, but she was probably too young and I would have been arrested. Yeah, you're right. I was too young. But
So
honestly, Mikey Lito, you and I will talk about this in ad nauseum at length. Joe Tyson says, I haven't watched Extraction 2 yet either. It just came out this year, right, Russ?
well, yeah, it literally just came out, but I could actually see Big Joe as like one of the guys that Tyler Rake fights. Like Big Joe's got the henchman look about him, so I'd love to see that.
And it says, Jamin D says it's supposed to be Bangladesh. Yes, I do love EDM. But that's okay, Mikey Lito. I also like. Oh, thank you, Bloodsport One says I miss your singing. Sing again. Oh, I'll bring back some singing. I promise, guys. I'll bring in some singing videos. Thank you,
I
Bloodsport One.
haven't
And
seen Bloodsport in these parts for a long time. Hello,
yeah,
Bloodsport One. Literally the best handle on the internet. Well done, mate.
absolutely, Bloodsport One. And of course, we're talking about an action film, and so we're kind of glad that you're here as well. In any event. Stavros talked about the car scenes and angles. Yeah, let's talk about that because I know Russ, you said that the cost is less where they were filming. To be honest with you, I really love the stunts in this film and it didn't it was explosive, but it didn't look kind of like over the top ridiculous.
Mm,
They weren't trying to wow you with, as many explosions as possible. He's running for his life and he's running for his life with the child in tow. So, they're fighting to get out. And it's such a good, storyline seeing them run. And I love the conflict that the child has. And, ironically, it's something that gets revisited in this story, but I love the conflict because this kid is not going to necessarily want to go with him.
mm.
And that has to be addressed. It can't be like, well, yeah, I'm just going to go with this guy. Who is this guy? And also here's a shot of, I can't say her name.
Nick.
Right. The actress Golshatef Farahani. Miss Farahani, I apologize for ruining your name. This woman is stunningly beautiful. And she is kind of like his, she gives him his job, let's say. And she's, you see her in the beginning of the film and she tells him, she's like, you can't stay in this cabin that you're in for the rest of your life. I want you to do this job and, you got to rescue this kid. He's been kidnapped. So it is that type of film. But gee, as Jamin D says, it's supposed to be set in Bangladesh and somehow he has to go in there, extract him. And it's exactly this kind of hardcore where Rake shows up. He finds the kid. It looks like the kid isn't going to come out. And then he gets into action and it is amazing action. Russ, a lot of the scenes are in areas that don't have a lot of room. So it's also not so easy to construct action scenes when you only have a few feet, right? I mean, they had to film this and not be in the way of the camera. And we've been seeing a lot of impressive films in areas like what they have in this film, where it has to be difficult to set up a shot when you only have maybe one angle to do it in. Russ, how are they accomplishing this?
Well, if you are not Scott Adkins, if you are not Amy Johnston, if you are not Cecily Faye, if you're not Jean-Claude Van Damme, if you're not Dolph Lundgren, and you don't have a lifetime of martial arts experience behind you, it's a lot easier to film things up closer and do a bit of that as opposed to doing a long wide shot where you see him mowing people. Now, he does do that in this film. I'm not going to take anything away from the coordination and the work that Hemsworth put into it because he looks legit. He absolutely looks legit. But you won't see a face-off like this for any great length of time, even with the fight he has with Sabu, which I love the sort of overuse of people getting run over. It's like that's a real John Wick trope. Now, I'll speak about that again in a minute. But you won't get a big long wide shot of them fighting for ages and ages and ages because, guess what? They're not trained martial artists. They're not going to be able to do it and it's going to look fake, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of what you were talking about this tight filming, long takes, all of this stuff has been proven in movies over the past 20 years. But because we've been so dominated in this period of the past, say, 15, 20 years of the era of Disney, the era of the massive superhero movie, a lot of this stuff has sort of flown under the radar. So obvious comparisons with Extraction are going to be John Wick because it is very similar in a certain, like I said, the people getting run over, people taking incredible amounts of damage and still been able to carry on. But I tell you what, Extraction owes a massive, massive, massive debt to, and that's the Jason Bourne movies. They were the ones that started off this close-up shaky cam business because obviously Matt Damon's not a martial artist, and then they did that again with Liam Neeson, Taken, and there was a lot of that going on with that stuff. So whoever's made this movie, and forgive me, Retro, I've forgotten the director's name. It's gone out of my mind, but you were absolutely right. He did a brilliant job. That guy knows how to shoot action. It's edge of your seat stuff. The first one, just once it starts, it just doesn't stop. And there are these sort of like little moments of, like when they go into the sewer, and there's these moments of calm, and you get this thing. He goes to the guy's house, and you sort of think, well, that's 2 moments of calm. Back to, oh no, now they're going to try and kill each other, and it's back to sort of mayhem and violence and bone breaking and and it's, yeah, the first one in and of itself is a complete movie. It's it's thematically great. Okay, we know that Tyler Rake has guilt over the death of his son and how he reacted to that. We also see it when after he killed the guy with a rake. There's a kid there that tries to shoot him. He's got a bolt action gun and he keeps trying to shoot him. And of course, and he just looks at the kid and he goes, go on, get out of here. Then he's protecting a kid. And Nick turns around and says to him, and I want to talk more about Nick as well in a minute.
Mhm.
But she turns around and goes, look, they've double crossed us. There is no money. There is no money. You just ditch the kid, because if you don't ditch the kid, you're going to die. But he won't, because he's atoning for what he considers a sin of his past. So the dramatic irony therein is, of course, who kills Tyler Rake? A kid at the
Um,
end.
and it is dramatic irony. Jamin D says that this guy, the one who's a special ops, his one of his main opponents, at least for part of the film, says he's an Indian actor's name is Randeep Hooda. He's a good actor, the special ops guy. Jamin, was this a popular film in India? And I believe you're in India. Jamin D, correct me if I'm wrong, if you are not. But I'm just curious because it's exactly the type of fun action film that I love seeing in that type of location.
Oh, I have a question to ask then. Is Jamin D actually, are you from India? Is he an Indian chap?
I don't know whether he's Indian, but he has told me that he grew up in India.
Oh,
And
well, if you are, Jamin, let us know.
yeah, Jamin, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not assuming that he is Indian. I don't know. I don't know if he's Indian or not, but I believe he did tell me that he grew up in India. I could be wrong, Jamin D. So I don't want to say the wrong thing. But Jamin, let us know, because I'm kind of curious as to whether you know how the reception for the film was in India, even.
Yeah, I have a specific question for you as well, if you are actually Indian. So that would be really great. Well, it's great whoever you are, but it would be nice if I could get an answer to the question.
Yes, absolutely. And there's just even the stills are fantastic in this film. I just wanted to show some of the stills here, and just really amazing. There again is the actor that I was referring to. He was just spectacular. And we're going to get to that part here, Russ. I think there might be a shot or two, and I'll go back. I'm looking for a shot where we see the main character with his friend. This is where he goes to pick up the kid. I loved this. This was so much fun seeing him there, and he manages to retrieve the child.
That's the key scene, that opening scene of violence with those guys.
Yes,
that's the moment. This scene here, this whole massive action sequence that goes on and on and on with no cuts. I mean, it's amazing how they've done it. I mean, obviously it's got cuts in it, but it doesn't appear to have cuts in it. That's when Extraction announces itself as, this is what this film is going to be like. Look at this guy. Look how fucked up he is. Look, he just stabbed his eyes on a rake. Look at this. And he broke the rake and he stabbed it through another guy's chest. And it actually knows what it's doing, because when you see it from the kid's point of view, he just has to walk through this room full of twitching corpses and carnage, which is kind of like the audience been handheld and said, right, okay, well, you just started to watch this. This is what you're in for, and buckle up, because you've got another hour and 45 minutes of this to go. And once it starts, it doesn't let you go. What is Stubble saying?
Stubble says that Russ could pull off a Tyler fake.
Tyler fake, yeah,
rake when he's finished with the physical training. He'll reach rake level. Okay,
that's brilliant, Stubble. Tyler fake. That is me from now on, right?
Anthony says good morning and good afternoon. Happy Sunday. Love the show, Arton. Very informative. Thank you so much. So kind, Anthony, to say good morning to us, and so great to see you here.
Anthony, thanks so much, mate.
Stubble says, I saw that Amazon and Games Workshop were doing Cavill's Warhammer 40K. They'll surely have a budget to pull it off. Absolutely. Thalia is here as well.
Oh yeah,
Russ.
Maya. I was going to say, Stubble. Let's try and circle back to that when we're done talking about extraction. But yes, you're absolutely right.
Okay, so Jamin D says, it was well-watched movie. I would say, yeah, it was. I am Indian living in Canada at the moment. All good. Well,
So
fantastic.
my question to you, Jamin D, is as an Indian, do you think the film suffers from white savior syndrome, or do you think that that's not an issue and he just happens to be a mercenary or is white, or is that culturally offensive? Because a lot of people here on Screen Rant and what's his name, Scotty Mendelsohn, whoever he writes for, all those people instantly hated on it because of white savior syndrome. And I'd be really interested to get your perspective on that. Is that a thing? Is that not a thing? Because obviously, as a straight white bloke, I loved it, and I didn't even think twice about the fact that he was India or anywhere else. It was just like, this is an amazing action movie. Doesn't matter if it was India or Thailand or Eastern Europe. The film, in and of itself, was giving me special forces guy, faceless goons, explosion, killing people with rakes, running through heaps of shit. It was just great. I just loved it. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it.
Yeah, it was. I think that it was just so entertaining, so wonderful to see this. I don't think there's a moment where Hemsworth doesn't have blood on him. You know, I know that's not so important, but
You know that one picture you showed just there. Go back again
uh-huh.
and again.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, keep going. That one. Yeah,
Oh,
that bit there.
here?
I love that because this bit happens at the beginning and also at the end of the film, and we would keep talking about the effort that Hemsworth must have put into this because he's dying at this point, right? He's been shot to pieces and all the rest of it. He's not even looking at what he's doing, but that actor was able to load the gun, do the thing, and make it look like that is a thing that Chris Hemsworth has been doing since he was 17 years old. Right, he just looks like he knows what he's doing, and he's huge. And he looks, even though no one can take getting run over by a car, you can in action movie world. He looks like the kind of character that can pick you up and sling you over the balcony. He can take being hit because he's a big unit. He's like Arnie in that regard. You know, 6'4" or 6'6" or whatever he is. He's just an action. He's an action hero. And as we come to the twilight of the superheroes, thank you, Alan Moore. Maybe these guys, as oh god, Stubble was saying up above, Henry Cavill, Chris Hemsworth, Chris Pine, Chris Pratt, they're all starting to sort of go away from their superhero properties and into these action. And don't forget about Chris Pine's done a couple of decent action flicks like The Contractor and the one that I still haven't seen yet with Tandy Newton in it.
All the old knives.
All the old knives. There you go. See, it's made an impression on you because you still remember it, right? So what does James say? Oh, we don't give a shit about white savior or any such. I would say Western mentality. Sorry for being a bit crude. No, you're absolutely right, and this sort of reinforces my own personal biases because I've never really thought it was a white lefty journalist point to commentate on what this was. But if the people that are being depicted in the movie as a straw poll of one don't give a shit about it, then why do these people seem to want it to be an issue and crap all over the movie because of it? Instantly disregard the movie because of cultural appropriation, this, that, and the other. Whereas here we have a chat from India going, no, loved it. So thank you, Jamin D. I really appreciate you taking time out to answer that.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that Jamin did mention this. And I could be incorrect on this, but I think I am right. India has made more films than any other country in the world, I believe.
Yeah, and makes more money than anybody else in the world out of movies, I believe, as well.
And so, they have their own industry. They have their own industry of films made in different languages. They have Bollywood, they have Dollywood, they have a number of different locations of the industry as well. And there's one or two actors who I've been watching, on and off, let's say, in some Indian films. This is I'm not necessarily here to preach about it. It's just that they have a history of film and a quantity of film that dwarfs so many other countries that, it is very interesting to see the way that their cinematic culture is arranged in movies. Very different, different languages, different cultures, different approaches. Yes, I've seen RRR. You know, Russ, you and I talked about that film. Yes, I have seen a bunch of Indian films last year. Um, Brahmastra, which was a film that they were saying kind of reminded them of a Marvel-esque style film series. There's going to be Brahmastra Part 2. But that's not all. I mean, I watched a bunch of them with Lorena, just enjoying a lot of the cinema. And, you know, I think it's very interesting because they have their own culture. And those people who make comments about a white, you know, this sort of white savior thing, do not care that India necessarily has its own cinematic culture. And so hearing Jamin, you know, comment about this, because they have such a rich history. India has such a rich history in filmmaking and, you know, action, especially Russ.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just weird that, yeah, here's Jamin letting us know exactly how many. It's just over, we have over 18 film industries. Oh my gosh, 18, based on languages and states. So that's why you see more movies. The quantities of these films is just like any other movie industry, I would say. Okay. But yeah, it is really interesting, Russ, when you think about yeah. Oh, you didn't like Brahmastra. Okay. Which I get, like I understand. I did like I can't remember all the names of the films, but it was one where a guy where the whole town was like imprisoned, and there were 3 parts to it. But my real point is that they didn't even bother, Russ, to check and think about the culture of the Indian film industry and what's important to them. An article where they're like saying that, you know, just because somebody looks different and they're going into another country, and that it means that it's just something they're making up. It's a fantasy. They want it to be true. This film has nothing to do with that. This film is about a boy who was kidnapped. And
Yeah, and Tyler Rake was the only bloke that would take the job because it was basically a suicide mission, and he's got a death wish.
yes, and if this person hadn't taken the job, this boy would have been killed, because we learn early on in the film, right, Russ, that the money that's needed for the ransom, or at least let's say the money that they believe the let's say the family or the may have had, maybe it was seized by the state, right, Russ? You know, the
It was
father.
frozen. Yeah, his assets were frozen. So basically, everybody thinks Nick and all that, and all that, and a word about the setup. I love the entire setup, because these things are never sort of explained. How these mercenary companies they're always like multi-billionaires, and they've got satellites, and they've got all this stuff. I love all that stuff. It's kind of like everybody's BlackRock these days. Yeah, it's so good. But yeah, they were saying that actually the Indian government, or the state government, however the legalities would work in India, had basically frozen this guy's asset. And Sabu says to his missus, look, he hasn't actually got the money. We can't buy the kid back. Well, we're lucky if we can pay off these mercenaries. And then it becomes apparent they can't even pay off the mercenaries. But Rake sticks with the job because of his moral compass.
Yeah, and so, you know, like, let's say, with that even being said, we do learn right there that the money isn't there. And essentially what would have happened is that if he hadn't gone to rescue this child, the child would have been killed. He would have been killed. He would have been killed in that room that he found him in. And, you know, the money is not there for the people who kidnapped him. They would have just killed the child, and then they would have gone and kidnapped somebody else, right, Russ? That's what would have happened. You know, the fate of this child essentially was sealed. And I think that this character also has a sense of figuring out things. You know, they were supposed to get on a boat. You know, this is the lady who he works with, and this was the plan, was that they were supposed to get on a boat, right, Russ? And that gets foiled. So what do you have to do? Well, guess what? He's an expert in survival. So you need somebody like this who can anticipate changes. And it wasn't going to be a smooth operation, because if that was the case, then anybody could go in there and get him out. This was going to be very tough, and it wasn't easy. And there was a lot of obstacles that he came up against. But boy, how satisfying was it to see them going through the streets of Bangladesh. You know, you break open a door, and there's some family sitting there, and they're, you know, watching TV or whatever it is, and they got to run through. I mean, it was really enjoyable. Really just amazing film that they made, and it
Well,
was
technically, as a screenplay, right? It's 120 pages long. It's perfectly paced. It's perfectly balanced. The character has an arc. You get to learn about the other characters. The main baddie, if you like, the guy that he's at, who's working for the Cebu, is a decent guy, the ex-Indian Special Forces guy. He has his own thing, so it's not a hateful baddie. Like, he's trying to save his own kid, and Tyler Rake is fighting for redemption and feels that he can save this boy. Perhaps it'll give him some sort of redemption for being, as we learn in the second movie, why did he go and serve in Afghanistan again when his son was dying? He said, because I couldn't fix it. And that says so much about Tyler Rake's character in one single line. Right there, you got to the core of it. He is so capable, and he was not able to save his son. And this guy that is brave and will mow down hundreds of baddies and kick the shit out of people and put his life on the line for absolutely anybody, that people that he doesn't know. He's very capable. The one thing he couldn't fix was his son's illness, and he was scared and he ran away from it. And that is the
absolutely.
guilt that he carries.
Now, Jamin D, the film that I was talking about that I thought was spectacular was called KGF, and the other one, that KGF chapters 1, 2, and 3, and the other one was Bahubali. So those are some other films that I was watching with Lorena, and they're not exactly the same type of film as these other ones, but certainly this industry is remarkable, and I love that this film went into this area, and it was so entertaining. It was so much fun. I think that in the end, Russ, you mentioned the main character does perish, but all is not lost because we have the second film now. Because the second film, Russ, is out now in 2023, we're not going to talk about spoilers, right?
No, because Big Joe hasn't seen it, has he? But spoiler alert, Big Joe, there's Extraction 2, so he survives. Mikey hasn't seen either of them, so I think we just trashed the first one. Sorry,
Mhm.
Mikey, but he does come back, um, and there is a reasonable um, period of rehabilitation. In this movie, it's not like he's instantly back on his feet. They do spend a decent amount of time, and they do expand the Extraction verse. We got a bit of Idris coming in to do a bit of universal expansion. Um, I don't know how much I can say. The conceit of the second one, what draws Tyler, because Tyler is kind of like done with it now. But well, yes, Mikey says it's a suicide mission. The mercenary has a death wish. I feel for the kid, yeah, but he was certainly going to die if not for Tyler Rake. So he's got a chance with Tyler. Um, the conceit of this film is Tyler's kind of done and he's been injured, badly injured. But of course, we learn by circumstance that his ex-wife's sister needs him to do something. And I really want to talk about these two in this movie. Um, so he's back in action, and the resolution of his arc in that movie, in the line delivered by Olga Kurylenko as his wife,
I
dude.
love Olga Korlenko. I love her. I love her so.
Yes, and she's not in this a lot,
No,
but we can see, because they're such good actors, you can see how much she means to him. You can also see how much he used to mean to her. Like, you can understand, because of what happened, why the divorce and why there's animosity, and all this kind of stuff, and how she can never forgive him.
no, she can't. And
But
hello, Fletcher Williams. I suck at games. Just want to say hello. Go on, Russ.
I mate, but that line she delivers to finish that particular arc, they're gonna have to find a new motivation for him now, because I believe that with that line of dialogue that she comes out with, that I got a little bit teary eyed. I got a little bit misted up at the end of that, and I got a little bit. Yeah, well, yeah, but no, Mario. Sorry, I'll continue my line of thought. Um,
And hi, Mark Spencer's avatar. Hi.
God, they're all coming up. Yeah, I loved that, and I wanted also to talk about Nick, and now I've forgotten her brother's name. That's really annoying, and
No, I'll
how
tell you what his
this
name is. His
this
name,
movie Extraction 2 does what every
Yaz.
Yaz, right? So Nick and Yaz, right? This expands on what the first one was. It makes the universe bigger. It does. It's obviously got a little bit more money behind it, but they're shooting in Eastern Europe, so they've still got a lot more bang for their buck. So it makes everything. There you go. Nice one, Fletch. Fletch says they kicked it up a notch on this one. Yes, they did. But you know what they didn't do? They didn't go into self-parody. They didn't go into ridiculous CGI action. They kept, that bit when he's shooting the helicopter with the machine gun. It's like awesome. It's like you can see Arnold Schwarzenegger doing it back in the day. Um, and they expand the world around him, which is why I wanted to talk about Nick and Yaz. Now, you see this sort of thing building up with Nick. Has she got the hots for Tyler Rake? It
Hell yeah,
seems like,
everybody's got the hots for Tyler
well,
Rake.
yeah, but a little bit more than the hots for Tyler. It seems like that she wants something more out of this relationship that perhaps Tyler Rake does, or perhaps Tyler Rake is so depressed and burnt out and frazzled he doesn't even notice. But what
I,
they do,
I think and I'm sorry, Russ, I think he does want more from her, but he doesn't want to take advantage. He's not that kind of a guy.
no, you
It
gotta
has
love
to
him.
be right. Everything has to be set up right if he's going to be with her.
Yeah, I think so. So yes, they expand it with the introduction of the Idris Elba character, who he has a small role in this. There's no spoilers, but that Idris Elba will be shirtless, kicking ass in Extraction 3. If they don't do that, there'll be a riot of Ritas on the street if they don't have that. So I can imagine that there will be Idris back in action. But these two, you really get they expand the relationship between these two characters. You see how close that these two are, and you see how capable Nick is as a fighter, as a shot, as a person that can handle herself and gets fucked up royally by big, strong, burly special forces men. And she is out on her, she's breathing out of her ass by the end. Like, he has to use every bit of skill. And guess who saves her? Tyler fucking Rake. Because she can't batter 6 special forces guys on
No.
her own. And that is such a departure from everything that we've seen. And you know me, man, I've written Gladiatrix books. I'm writing these things for Amy and Cecily and all that kind of. I love a strong female character, but it's got to the stage now where it's just parody. And Extraction is a movie that seems to have been written in 1987 and put on the bloody shelf, and it came out in 2020 and 2023. It has those values. It respects the strength of its female character, but it's not. Nick is a real person in action world, so we're all a little bit hyper advanced in action world. She's a real character. She is capable, but she's not Superwoman. Rake isn't Superman, and bad things happen to some of our characters that we've learned to love in these movies. Things don't always go our way. Come on, guys. This is more of this, more
Yes.
John Wick, more
And
Scott Adkins.
certainly there are things, and I have no trouble saying this whatsoever. There are things that men can do that women cannot, and we see this time and time again in this film. And it is quite obvious and aware that she knows that. There are some scenes where I'm even amazed at what the Ray character is doing and what Hemsworth is doing, but I know he can do it.
Mhm.
Where I know that she can't do that. And I've actually seen Hemsworth do some things in some series that he was a series where he talked about wellness and stuff that I didn't know he could do. And I'm like, he's going to get killed, but he obviously wasn't going to get killed because he's a man and men can do these things.
Mhm.
And I, as a woman, I'm watching it in amazement, but then I realize I'm like, yeah, he really can do that. Wow. Like, it's pretty darn amazing what you guys can do. You guys are great. But
I'm sorry, can you
yes.
scroll up a little bit, because I saw that someone, I think it's James, asking me a question and it's
Yes,
gone now.
there
It's
is a
disappeared.
question for
Okay.
you. Yes, absolutely. So let's get to that. And we're going to do the question. Mark Spencer's Avatar says that I feel Extraction 2 should have had a theatrical release. Retro Nerd Girl says spoilers for Extraction 1 today will not ruin your experience of watching it. If you haven't seen it, you'll still enjoy it like action movies. Thank you, Retro
Hundreds,
Nerd
retro,
Girl.
hundreds.
Yes. Now here's the question from Jamin D for Russ says about our recent Indian movies that came out or going to come out, where let's say most of them are set in British colonial area. You know how British is portrayed. as a baddie. Watching such films, such movies at times, do you think it's okay to have already seen the British as bad? Can we get something new? If you know what I'm saying, yeah, you're talking about like an RRR, for example, one of the biggest films in 2022, hands down, maybe the most talked about film in 2022 internationally, RRR, where there was a colonial element to that film. What do you think with films? It's still very popular theme. Russ, what are your thoughts?
I just think the way that the film industry works, I think India, especially with Indian movies, they kind of know what their audience wants. So you're never going to see, um, I don't know, the Siege of Krishnapur turned into a movie where the British hold off hundreds and hundreds of sepoy rebels. If you've well, they rebel. I don't know how you'd look at it. We were the imperial conquerors, and this was a rebellion against the imperial conquerors, right? So you can sort of swing that around to something like Zulu, where it's a heroic story of 90 odd Welsh soldiers holding off thousands of Zulus. And that's a heroic story for us as British people. Same with the Siege of Krishnapur. It's about a tiny little garrison, and they do all these things like they've run out of cannon bullets, so they're smashing up their statues and firing statues out at the people. I can't imagine that an Indian audience would want to go to a movie where an important part of their history, which happened, is basically them getting a pasting by the Brits. I kind of understand it from that perspective. The other side of the perspective is, though, the way that things have gone, you'd never get a movie like that anymore. You can't have British colonials been heroic, because the very idea of what they're doing now is so frowned on by absolutely everybody that it doesn't matter what these individual men went through at their time, and they did heroic acts at their time. It's all all in the name of evil colonialism. So I don't think you just couldn't get it. And I wouldn't want them to remake Zulu, and I just wouldn't. That would just destroy me if they remade Zulu, because I know what they do with it. It's kind of a little bit like Cowboys and Indians, right? Back in the day, John Wayne and the Native Americans, the indigenous people were the baddies, and that's kind of how it was. You couldn't make a film like that anymore, even if you wanted to. You just couldn't. So I
Yeah.
hope that answers your question, Jamin.
And I think that even if they went ahead and tried to do something that was more spaghetti westernish, where you have the man with no name, and then one side is fighting the other, you couldn't even have that level of neutrality where he has nothing to do with one side or the other. He just happens to be in the middle of a skirmish, and there's some other subplot going on that he's involved, but there could be some big war between one person and another. I think even that theme is something that a lot of movie people are staying away from, because they feel obligated to make a statement. They can't just show the fighting between those two groups without feeling like they have to say something or interject something, or like, whatever the comment is. Versus if it was made 60 years ago, that whole fight could be going on, and the man with no name could go ahead and play in the film and do whatever he's doing.
Yeah,
But we don't get
absolutely.
involved. Yeah. So, those days are kind of, we're not there. I think we're going to get back to that, but it seems like we are kind of, it's unfortunate that we can't just make
Well,
whatever
I think
we
people would
want.
sit still for it. I mean, I just don't necessarily. Well, we had the answer from Jamin earlier. Jamin's like become the star of Sunday Brunch today. But really, nobody outside of those offices in certain parts of Los Angeles gives a fuck. Ultimately, they're just all sitting there virtue signaling away and thinking that people care about these. And by and large, people don't. They just want to watch a movie.
Mhm.
You
And
know,
Fletcher Williams says he meaning Rake probably feels he's
Mm.
toxic for her and doesn't want to drag her down. Yeah, that might be another consideration, because he's an ethical person, even though the name suggests the opposite. And even though he made a mistake, which, because we are human, there are no perfect people out there. I think that he thinks, I can't drag this woman down. She's obviously a high caliber lady. She's 100% kick-ass class.
Mm.
And Mario says this female character is what people, I'm assuming, want for strong female characters.
He's
Absolutely.
exactly right, because she's a character and she has flaws and weaknesses, and one of those weaknesses is a physical weakness. That means she can't beat up six special forces guys on her own. And that isn't to besmirch all women everywhere and to say that all women are garbage and weak and pathetic because this special forces, this highly trained woman can't beat up 6 highly trained special forces operatives with guns. And, it's just, she's great. She's great. She is resourceful. She is powerful. She does hold her own, but there's only so much she can do. And that's why you have a team. And that's a message that's been forgotten by the major players in all of this, you know?
And Irene Jobson says, I just ordered stuff to make boba bubble tea, milk teas. It's fantastic. Irene, they have some that have sugar, some that don't have sugar, some that the boba tea, the tapioca pearls have protein in them. So it's like you're having a protein shake. The amount of protein, you can have up to 30 grams of protein with your bubble tea, and it could be a totally nutritious thing. Just so you know, Irene, enjoy your bubble tea. Now I want some. And Irene says, I loved RRR. Wasn't it great? And yeah, Byford mentions that some films, for example, he says, and I don't remember this for sure, but it might, says Across the Spider-Verse has the British is a bad element. I don't remember. But to be honest with you, thank you for bringing it to our attention. Stavros says these two make a special agent couple. Yeah, I think they're brother and sister, right?
They are, yeah.
And Jamin says, I love Zulu, by the way. It was so much fun, and I'm proud of an Indian movies. I also feel sometimes feel guilty seeing them with my British friends.
Yeah, sure, but I just think Jamin, but then he goes on to say that, but then they even enjoy it so much they kind of in my head when I watch it. Well, it's only a movie, right? At the end of the day, but I just don't think if you're, especially with the Indian movie industry, the way that it is, and it's always playing to its strength. Like it's the big thing that every single movie has to have a song and dance in it, and we know that that's not the case. But it's like the perennial example of what when you watch a Bollywood movie, it has to have the dance sequence, it has to have the fight sequence, it has to have the romance, it's got to have this and it's got to have that. And this is pretty much the same thing. I just don't think Indian people would turn out to watch a movie about the siege of Krishnapur where the sepoys get a pasting. They just wouldn't. Why would they? And I think in the West, the more liberal writers and producers are getting, the more you're just sort of leaning away from all these heroic things. And also, studios just don't trust their audience to make their own decision. For example, Master and Commander, Russell Crowe, chasing after that French ship. It wasn't a French ship in the novel, it was an American ship. It's got the Brits giving the Americans a pasting in the 1812, I think it's the 1812 war, or it might have been the War of Independence. Either way, British Navy, better than the American Navy, gives them a pasting, so what? But they wouldn't sit still for it. They're like, oh, no, we can't have that. Like, we'll have to make them French. And it's like, well, I don't think Americans would have minded, like that's kind of it. Or maybe they would have, but who knows? But the studios don't trust it. The money won't be there. I guess it's like, would I really want to watch? Well, actually, we did make a film about a brilliant film about a British defeat, or Allied defeat, which was Market Garden, A Bridge Too Far. We got a pasting in that, but it was still like really, really heroic. But I guess it's kind of like Brits watching a film where the Nazis are giving us a kicking or something like that. People just wouldn't be interested. And I think that's the point. But in its own culture, why not? There was a war, and we were in the Imperials. Although I don't think we were a terrible empire to be under. If you're going to be under an empire, it's probably the best one to be under. But I don't know because I wasn't there.
I also think that if Master and Commander needs to appeal to an American audience, which is what we're talking about, like how are Americans going to feel about it? I don't really think Americans care about anything one way or another. But what I am going to say is that they may not understand some of the fighting and the history behind what's happening. So they have to completely erase all that and not address it and say, let's make it hypothetical. The interaction could be hypothetical between not a hypothetical country, but a different country. Because if we go ahead and put in this American interaction and people don't understand what's going on, they view that as, they'll say that's exactly what happened. This is history. And it's because I saw it in Master and Commander.
Yeah.
So many Americans don't understand what privateering even occurred, that, that whole relationship on the sea, what's happened, and the importance of, ruling the seas. That's not a huge history point necessarily for many people. So when they see something in a movie, Russ, a lot of times people might take it for face value and not understand it. So I think that their main thing was like, let's not confuse them, because we know they're not going to open up a book to find it. or
Yeah.
even people will not give them the right information. That's
But
just
you
how
know
it
what,
is.
some kids will. One out of every million kids might just pick up a history book and discover a love of it. You never know. Oh, you laugh. No, I think that's really important about like historical. It's happened to me when I was a child. I told you a million times, I saw 300 Spartans. It's
It's because
inspired a
you spent so
lifelong
much
love of
time
ancient
with them.
Greece.
But you're right. There will be some few very special children who will do that. You're not taking over the stream, Jamin. We appreciate it. We've gone over our
No,
time.
we asked you, Jamin. We said we came to you. We were the ones looking for the interview. So don't apologise, mate.
Mark Spector says Extraction 1 and 2 have amazing rewatch quality. Yes. Unlike some movies that have just hit theaters, except for Across the Spider-Verse, the movie's awesome. Yeah.
I wonder if Extraction 1 and 2 are out on physical media and do they have special features? I'd love to listen to a commentary and see behind the scenes and all that stuff.
I would love it too. I can't wait for the watch party for it. Um, and Jamin's talking about Indiana Jones. I love Temple of Doom and Gunga Din. And let's just say Indians were not portrayed in the best light. Yeah. But I have never cared about that because those movies were so good. Interesting.
Yeah,
And
I think you speak for the majority of people. I've said on this channel sort of many times, I just don't really think that we really need white upper class liberal lefties defending minorities in inverted commas that probably don't care about this stuff as much as they do. It's just virtue signaling for virtue signaling's sake, which is why I raised the question as to why a lot of these screen rants and movie news and all these Scotty Mendelson, all of those people were dumping all over this movie because of that. And it's just like, no, that's just retarded. And yeah, we got the proof in the pudding.
dumping over Extraction?
Yeah, they were dumping on Extraction because of its white savior syndrome. That was the point of my question, which is why I wanted to know if Jamin was actually from India himself. To say, well, what do you think? Do you think like white Chris Hemsworth coming into India to save somebody is a terrible thing? Did you think it was like racist and no Indian man could have done it? No, they didn't give a shit. It's just Chris Hemsworth kicking ass. That's what they care about, right?
And I also think that just the fact, not only did they care to check, but there's ignorance of Indian culture here in the US by Americans. They don't understand that there is a whole culture that exists. Like they believe that American culture and how an American might feel is how the entire earth would feel, or even the galaxy. So
It's
it's
just for me, it's asinine. It's like I'm sure as soon as any one of those reviewers, regardless of what they personally thought about the film, they thought, "Oh, look, white man in India. What's the trope? Oh, yes, white savior syndrome. Film's garbage. White savior. Blah, 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 blah." Without even probably watching the movie, they hated it on sight. I think Mendelsohn said it was a decent action movie, but unfortunately, can't get away from its terrible depiction of the white savior. It's like, oh, shut up, fuck off. All right, they just made a decent film, and they were not thinking about that. In fact, you people in that little segment of Los Angeles where you all live and sniff each other's asses and smell your own farts and drink your own Kool-Aid, you're the only people because you're coming out wanting to virtue signal and make yourself feel great, talking about something that nobody else is talking about. And the numbers prove that these films are well loved across the world.
And Jamin D says, by the way, it's not just India, Korea, Japan, and other Asian countries feel the same way, as they don't care about that sentiment of the white savior. It's not a thing. And Stavros says, it's not whitewash. Say what? How absurd.
Agreed,
Absolutely,
Stavros.
guys.
Agreed.
Now, Russ, we have to stop the show, but what a great show today, and certainly enjoyed everybody here talking about everything that we enjoy. I'm just going to put up Cecily Faye's link again, Russ, since you made a point of mentioning Cecily Faye. And guys, please do check out her information. Go to her YouTube channel and make sure you find out what she is doing. She's such a talented performer and actress. So do that. Also, like and subscribe to Tom. This is not Tom's channel. This is
just a brown girl.
Girls. Just a Brown Girls channel as well. Please check out Russ's Amazon storefront.
Which he didn't even know he had.
Russ is an author of the Gladiatrix series. Please do check it out. Russ is an amazing writer. You don't want to miss his books. Go ahead and check him out, pick him up, and you get to speak to Russ or ask him questions here on Sunday Brunch when he's here. So
Because
certainly,
that's on the top of everyone's list, right?
come on, guys, please do check out Russ's book. You won't be disappointed. I've only ever heard good things about his work. So make sure you do that. Mikey Lito's channel as well. Check out Mikey Lito live, guys. Make sure you check that out, as well as Retro Nerd Girl's channel. Tom, can you please give me the link to yours? I'm looking for it and I can't seem to find it. Please. And just go ahead and put that in there. Just want to thank everybody for being here today. Guys, and make sure you like and subscribe to Positive Fandom. I would appreciate a like and subscribe. I so appreciate all of you being here. Stavros says, last whitewash movie to come out was Gods of Egypt. Ever since that, Hollywood has put on notice, and now they have diversity. Guys, thank you, everybody. So great to hear all of you and your comments and what's on your mind and things like that. So, Tom, if you have a second, just go ahead and put your link in so I can put it up there. Tom Jr. Jackson is our moderator, collaborator, and good friend here at the channel. He does a lot of work. And I so appreciate him. And I just want to mention that because I would absolutely like you to subscribe to his channel. Here it is, guys. Tom Jr. Jackson's channel on YouTube. He does interviews, reviews, and so much more, guys. Thank you so much, Tom, for everything you do. We are all goof people. Russ, thank you for being here today.
I'd just like to say before we go, I'm glad that Irene enjoyed my rendition of "fuck off." She even commented on it in the comments, which I thought in my accent, which I thought was really funny. So thanks, Irene.
And this is very interesting because I think Stavros had said that Gods of Egypt was maybe a whitewashed film, let's say. And interestingly enough, Jamin D says he loved it.
Well, we love you, Jamin D.
Yep. See, this is like, you just never know how. And yes, unfortunately, that YouTuber is quite a sad situation, Mario, but she wants to push that. Bye, Stubble.
See you later,
And Tom says, thank everybody for joining us. And this one's for you, Bloodsport. We'll be running up that road, running up that hill. So thank you so much, Bloodsport. And everybody, thank you for joining us today. Remember, no matter where you are in the galaxy, always remember to please be kind. Take care, everybody.
Thanks so much, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.